laughs, you're in for a treat. Friends, if you're looking for real old school laughs, you're in for a treat because we've got them right here. Flip City Magazine. Remember Mad Magazine? Then it went woke? Well, don't worry. Flip City has no chance of going woke. That's right. 4 times a year, you'll get an actual printed magazine full of jokes, stories, comics, and more, all about today's pop culture, entertainment, and woke politics. Flip City takes terrible entertainment trends we love to hate with hilarious parodies of Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Star Trek, Hunters, and more. Trust me when I say there is nothing else like Flip City on the market. So subscribe today. It will be delivered in print, or you can even get it digitally if you're one of those wacky Zoomers. Either way, follow our link and sign up today, and if you put in midnight, you get an extra 10% off. Check out Flip City Magazine today. It's Monday. Most kids are now on summer vacation in the U.S. We have a show for you. We have the boss man, Andre, here with us. How you doing, Andre?
I'm doing good. Greetings, everyone. Glad to be here with you all. I just wish that Cultured Casino was back as well instead of being out there hunting Bigfoot. But
no, he's got to bring me home a baby Bigfoot. Yeah, he's on a mission from God.
No, I think he is acting as Bigfoot. He's just taking his turn.
Wow, do you think he's going to catch me a baby Bigfoot, Paul?
No. Look at him. He's obviously Bigfoot. Of
course. Well,
look at him.
He's half Bigfoot.
He's big toe.
We shave him down and we teach him to speak, but not too well. How you doing, Paul? Good morning.
I'm good. I am very good. It's confirmed I am booted from X. I'm done.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
That's fine.
Bullshit.
I have my anxiety level has plummeted fantastically since I haven't been participating.
Was it high to begin with?
I was addicted to X. I was addicted to Twitter. Something I was completely it's something my wife would say, you're addicted to that. I went, yep. That's right. So I am no longer. I would thank Twitter and the person who complained about my harsh jokes. So I have to thank them for.
Oh well, he can go and. I was about to say the same thing that got you banned, but so probably okay. I shouldn't.
No. As Woody Allen said in a joke, go forth and multiply. Yeah. So I'm fine. I'm good. So the source of some of my material came from X, but I don't need the idiots on there. And for the most part, everybody just keeps repeating the same thing that they themselves.
Can I inject something here, though? You may not have needed the idiots there, but the idiots needed you. Exactly. That's like the thing.
It was a great place.
Your being there was a public service.
Thank you. You're very kind. And I loved putting the jokes on and getting the reactions to it. And the fact it was a really good place to connect with people like yourselves. So that's all gone.
Yeah. Well, of course, we can collect another.
Hey, Jill.
I don't know that we ever, that you and I ever connected on X, actually. But
no, maybe not. But I connected to Jill an awful lot, and I miss you, Jill.
Yeah. Well, you can connect right here in our our morning show. So yeah. But we're so glad to have you all here. We have Jill here, as we saw. We also have Thunderstorm here. We have Penny here. We have Davina Duckworth is here. We have Natasha here, waving around that wrench along with.
Did you introduce Script?
A number of others, and we also have Script here, of course. Yeah, hey Script,
Hi.
how's it going? I was so preoccupied with my annoyance that Culture is still out hunting Yeti when we have the box office today. But
somebody's got to do it.
Carry on.
Somebody's got to get that guy, yeah. But
If
happy to
someone-
be here this week.
and
been busy
just-
last week, so I'm happy to return.
And just as a side note, if anyone needs to get hold of me, just email Paul Chato. Go to my website.
You are desperate for
chato.com.
fucking attention right now, aren't you?
No,
you
Okay, you know what? You have to go back
dying.
under another name. We have to hook you up.
He's like, I can't do this anymore.
They
I have
warn
no
you
more human
against that.
contact.
They warn you against harsh penalties trying to crawl back into Twitter. It's okay. I'm
Okay,
happy.
I have the idea. Maybe we should do like a Midnight's Edge in the morning specific Twitter account, and then Paul can run that one.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I just did. I just did another post about it. If all you folks in the chat could go out there and like it and retweet it quick. If you have an X, I'm sure that'll give it some attention. Elon's tagged in it. X is tagged in it. I said, so anti-Semitism is okay on X, but a dick joke is one step too far.
Correct. That's
Oh.
exactly was the problem.
Yeah, it's funny. Like here's one guy who's wishing basically death on you and every last one of your people. But telling him something that he probably likes to do anyway, and is probably doing right now in this moment. That's a step too far.
That way. Never.
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous. Like, go do something we know you like doing because it's part of. Yeah, and that's a step too far. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yes, it's part of the protected classes.
You're not a protected class anymore,
No.
Paul. Deal with it.
No, not anymore. Like
You're not gay enough. If you just suck some more dick, this wouldn't be a problem.
No, then he would be in trouble for suggesting it to you, even though it would be something you both had in common. But, yeah.
If you want to get into the protected class, I mean, anyone insulting Paul Chato is just dealing with senior citizen abuse.
True.
That's true, but that don't count no more. Script, haven't you figured that out?
Well, when you take a look at what's going on with Joe Biden, I guess you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, especially because of white men. Because most old people somehow are white men. I don't know how.
I think Joe Biden gives a bad reputation to us seniors.
Not just to you seniors. I mean, I would actually say that of all of the groups that he gives a bad reputation to, seniors are actually relatively far down that list. But yeah, that's me.
That's well.
I'd say I'm par for the course. What? Corpot? Huh? Par for the course. I want to go golfing.
Is that your Biden sound box?
I do voices.
Yeah, I gotta.
We need to get the Pampers for Old Boys commercial going here.
Yeah. I don't mind. I appreciate your support. I appreciate. I mean, it's it's a tear to my eye, the outpouring of all everybody's support for me. But I'm good.
We need you more than you need it.
YouTube hasn't banned me yet.
Yeah, that's true. So yet being the operative word, don't push your luck. But some people who pushed their luck were people last week. So we're going to talk about the box office because it was dead, according to most people. But is it? That's the question we're going to ask here this morning. Before we do, we got a couple super chats. Let's check in with those. We got Ruby Hoove, who gifted a membership. Thank you for that, Ruby Hoove. Tim Hayes has been a member for 35 months. That's 1 month away from 3 years. Congratulations, Tim Hayes, and thank you so much for your undying support. Tim is a huge supporter of all the channels and a lot of other channels. So thank you, Tim, for all that you do.
And we love seeing you in the live streams.
Absolutely.
And the membership streams.
Of course, which we hope to have one soon. We got Waltman here with 1999. Thank you so very much. So this is something we're going to talk about in a little bit. But so
$20. Thank you.
Yeah, $20. If it's directly from Bethesda, Starfield, no. If it's Bethesda's sub company like Machine Guns Games, Newer Wolfenstein and Indie, and ID New Medieval Doom.
Actually, it's id.
I have no idea. I'm not a gamer. Regardless how people feel about Xbox, it was a decent showcase. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the new Indiana Jones game here. I believe that's being put out by Bethesda. So there you go. And we got Jeremy Hembry also sending in 10 and says, I can't read today. My eyes are all fuzzy. I know I shouldn't bring up politics, but Andre, what do you think about Europe going to the far right? And do you think it's good thing for your
It's a
countries.
good
Wow,
thing for your
that's-
countries, yeah. Okay, first, let me just begin, because what he's referring to is the EU Parliament elections that were yesterday. So these were no national elections per se. These were elections specifically to each country's basically group that goes to the EU to represent the country and rule the EU. Also, since I am Norwegian and Norway is technically not a member of the EU, I did not get a vote in these elections. You see, Norway is not a member of the EU. We are a member of the EEA, which is short for the European Economic Area. You know what that is? Paul, you know what the EEA is? No, I will tell you. And what I'm saying now is the absolute truth, because all of our self-appointed betters, the modern-day aristocrats, they all decided that the EU is a fantastic idea, but we need the support of the people to actually get enrolled with it, because you actually give up a lot of national autonomy and stuff like that, because you give up national supremacy in order to join a body that, if it were applying, wouldn't join because it doesn't have enough democracy. That's the truth about the EU. So what they did to circumvent, in case, because there are a lot of countries that voted no, like Norway voted no, Switzerland voted no. So they invented the EEA, which is the light version of the EU, which basically means that, the people voted no. Now we're just going to join the EU instead, or the EEA instead, which means we still join the EU. We just don't get a vote, but we are subject to the exact same freaking rules anyway.
That right. Sounds worse, Andre.
Yes, it is. So Norway is therefore part of the EEA, which means we are de facto members of the EU, because we have to do everything the EU dictates. We have to accept all the people, all the stuff like that. We just don't get a vote in the EU elections, which were yesterday. So this then is the option for the countries that vote no. Your politicians that still want to have, like, to be able to go to Brussels and have future careers and stuff like that. You just put the country into the EEA. No permission from the people is needed, and this is why so many Norwegian politicians have got supreme positions in the EU and in NATO and other various European stuff. And yeah, Norway sells the EU a shit ton of gas and oil. This is true. And also our electricity, our hydropower. And this pisses me off so much. I want to rant a little bit here. Norway is self-sufficient in power because of hydropower. So we have cheap, green, sustainable power. You know what our politicians did? They connected us to the EU power market. Now, all of our super cheap and almost infinite green power gets sent straight to Germany. That's all our power. Now we have none left for ourselves. So now we have to buy it back again. Now we have to buy expensive coal power and nuclear power and wind power back again, because we already sold off ours. Now, of course, the aristocracy, they earn a shit ton of money in this. The various people that run the super duper corrupt power industry, and good luck sorting out and going all the way through the money trail there with the windmill farms and stuff like that. So yeah. Anyway, all of the obvious corruption I just mentioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
The EU elections is a response to that. That was a popular uprising of the people. When you read that, the far right won, bullshit. There's no far right parties in Europe. What the media calls far right are actually fairly centrist. These are for the most part.
They're not far right.
No,
what they are not us.
Yes, correct.
The not
correct
us party.
They are far right from the perspective of the self-appointed aristocracy, like you have the Macron in France, for instance.
Right.
He isn't center. He calls someone far right. Remember, his point of view is the absolute extreme left. I mean, there's no one further to the left. Oh, I mean, on paper, I'm sure he's supposed to be centrist or something, but in practice, he does all of the commie programs and everything, right? So in practice, I mean, the only thing further left is Stalin. But from that point of view, everything is far right. Really, that's what they're saying. If you look at the programs and stuff like that for the parties that they label as far right, these are parties that, for the most part, would be considered perfectly centrist.
Right.
20 years ago. So no, there's no Europe going far right. No, it's just taking the trip back from the extreme left, from socialism and to communism, back to the center. That's what's really going on. But from the point of view of the commie saying this, it's going far right, but really it isn't. Now, of course, then you have some parties that may be a little bit more to the conservative side, but far right. Show me who's far right and just how far right they are. Like, this is ridiculous. They're centrist. This is just a pendulum, not swinging to the other extreme. It's just swinging straight back to the center where it belongs. And then it's being labeled as the far right. But it's just fear mongering. Ain't no far right anywhere.
Well,
so you have
with that,
far right parties in Europe, and they have like 0.5% of the votes in polls. And
Right.
Here.
I'd say on that note, we also have Warachi sending in 5 and says, what do you all think about Macron dissolving France's parliament because the far right soundly defeated his party in the recent elections? I think this is, I would assume this is related to that.
This is related to it because this is something Macron did in response to the electoral results. Now, I actually haven't been able to research this. So if we have someone from France in the chat, then feel free to enlighten me. But
probably not, because I pissed the French off pretty bad, Andre.
But
I'm sure.
Generally, because I do not know enough about the French electoral system to be able to comment on it with any kind of certainty. But I have seen this done twice in a European context, talking about the entire continent, right? And every country in it. So I do not know which of these is accurate for France. But generally, when this happens, it is done from one or two reasons. The first one, and I hope that this is the one, is that they have some sense of humility and they see that, wow, we are so far away from where the country is. When the country votes against us by this much, we do not have legitimacy of rule because the people obviously do not want us. So we are going to do the honest thing and call new elections right now so that the people can choose a new government that better suits where they are politically. That is reason one. And I do not think that is what's going on here. The other is that they're doing some kind of election interference shenanigans, that they're trying to do something to subvert the will of the people. And this is something that we have seen done several places, actually, where they decided, no, we do not accept these results. So you people, you're going to vote again, and you're going to do it until you get it right. And we're going to help you to make sure you get it right this time.
Yeah,
we have voting machines now.
I'm a voting machine myself. I can't wait to get out there and vote. No, anyway. So enough of the politics. Let's move on. We've got Captain Fandom Nerd, who's been here for 35 months. That's also a month away from 3 years. Thank you for that, Captain. We have Daryl Brewer gifting 5 memberships. Thank you so much, Daryl. And Lost for Words has been here for 29 months. Dr. Long Dongler sends in a thumbs up sticker to remind you to pound that thumbs up and a £1.99 to go along with it. And Pilgrim Media praises your good enough to steal video, Andre. So there you go. And then last, before we get into the box office here, this has been a little bit of talk. I don't know how much you're keeping up with it, Andre, but Jaloja sends in 14-month member chat and says, so let's talk about Paramount Merger, not Parliament. You were just talking about all that stuff. So I got no. Well, Paramount Merger, Skydance deal isn't signed. Third bid now in play. Sony still negotiating. So yeah, things are insane over there right now. And I was talking to Valiant a little bit yesterday, and I think that what's going on here is there may be some deal between Warner Brothers and Sony splitting up what is Paramount, and that's partially what has Sherry Redstone pissed. The other half is she's not going to get as much money as she's going to want no matter which way she cuts it.
Oh,
and at the end of the day, he destroyed her father's legacy. Let's be real. That's what she did. So Andre, do you have anything to say about this? Anything you've heard, anything you've read, kept up with it all? I've been trying to keep up with it with everything else that's going on, and then we'll see what else you guys have to say about it.
As a general thing, these things, they're not over until the fat lady sings.
Right. This could be another year before this gets done, yeah.
Exactly. This is not done until help me out here, guys. Which department in the U.S. is it that controls this thing? Like the Justice Department or whichever branch of the U.S. government that has to stamp and seal and approve this?
It'd be the judiciary branch through a bunch of like the SEC and all those types.
All of those. Until all of them have stamped, sealed, and approved, this is not done, and a new party can, in principle, come in at every single time. I mean, we saw this with the acquisition of Fox when Disney did that. I mean, when everything looked like it was done, then suddenly you had Sky come into the picture to screw things up a little bit there for them. So things can happen at any point. So before then, there's no point in like thinking this is how it's going to be. This is fluid and it's subject to change. So I would not be surprised if there's more news to come out of this. And also,
this is just getting started.
I mean, then it sounds like Paramount and Skydance haven't agreed between themselves, and as long as they haven't, well, then the door is wide open for a third party to even come in and say, hey, we want this part of your business. We don't want everything, but we want this particular part. And if you don't give it to us, we're going to report you to the SEC and the FTC and delay this thing for years and claim you have to be split up.
Well, Paul wants to say something here, but I don't know if you knew about this part too. This is something I learned yesterday, was just that the reason that, the split up might happen, and another reason why Sherry might be pissed, is because Skydance had hinted something, or somebody had, I don't remember exactly how she found out, but like she was, I guess, under the impression that they might do the same thing after they buy it. So that's another reason why she was pissed, is she didn't want this company split up, evidently, is the big thing. But Paul, you were about to say something there.
No, I was just going to say that Paramount's a failed organization. These companies are going to try to put as little cash into it as possible, or at least their own cash. There's going to be this is going to be very complicated versus some tech giant buying an up and comer for cash because their value is pure and logical. These companies are messy in their infrastructure, in the way that they're connected to their sub brands, and also the fact that Paramount is bleeding cash. So
Paramount's bleeding cash because Shari didn't use the power she had to clean house when she could. Because Sumner did the split up, she brought it back together, and instead of reorganizing the company as she should have, she just kind of let them do their own to their own devices, which crippled them.
Yep.
And to me, that is so disappointing, because long-time viewers, they will know that, those who watched our Star Trek videos from back in the day, we said that any kind of hope of rescuing Star Trek begins with the reunification of the corporation. It doesn't end there, but it begins there. And we got that beginning, but then sadly, Shari didn't follow through. She let the same companies that had run both companies into the ground continue to run the new merged company into the ground. I mean, I was so disappointing, because she ruined her father's legacy after he had damaged it himself, but it didn't have to be that way. She could have fixed it relatively easily, but she didn't. She just she trusted the same people that had ran it into the ground. And in this is one of the cases where I actually will agree with the Paul Chato school of management, namely, hire slowly, fire quickly. that's what she needed to do right here with the newly merged or re-merged Paramount, and she didn't. She just gave the same incompetent fools, the worst executives in the business, new chance after new chance after they found ever new ways of fucking up. And the only time something good came out of Paramount is when there was a good brand manager there. Case in point, Beavis and Butthead. That revival was fantastic. Or South Park. You have good people heading it, but the moment you don't have that, you don't have any kind of system in place to root out bad people and get in good people. Of course, things are going to go to hell that way.
Well, and the two things you just mentioned, Andre, are 20 and 30-year-old properties. See, so that's actually 25 and 35-year-old properties more
that too. I mean, what's new?
Yeah, see, and those people that are running it are the people that created it, and they haven't lost their touch. Exactly. But now somebody who is a creator who may have lost their touch, let's move forward with that, the top stories of the day after we get to Norwegian Kryptonian, who sent in 59 Norwegian krona to just to clarify that you are right. Democrats of Norway got I think it's 0.65% of the vote last election.
How the hell did we even get that many?
Yeah.
Considering we're EEA. But yeah. I mean, I'm pleasantly surprised.
Let's the history and civics part of the show is done now, and the whatnot. So let's get into the box office, because it's been a hell of a weekend, and I took a lot of flack last week over something I said about Red Letter Media's recent video and how they completely ignored the main issue of what's going on at the box office. And I'd say this weekend kind of proved me right. Wouldn't you say, Andre?
I should say so, yeah. Because
I fucking knew it!
Sorry. It's been a while.
Here, and we always have. But yeah, no, I should say so, because considering where Hollywood is right now, then there's a movie that did fairly good this weekend, wasn't it, Tom? Do you have the numbers?
Actually, there's a few movies doing good if you want to go through this with me. We have, let's actually start a little lower in the list here, because Furiosa was the whole point I was getting to, because I had pointed out, like, well, that's what happens when you take a male-driven franchise, shove a female lead in it, and try to amp that up. Guess what happens? People don't want to go see it. In fact, we're starting to learn now that they lost a huge chunk of the female audience. Isn't that right, Andre? I sent you a story, an updated story about that.
They lost, because the story, and this is, we'll get back to that in a separate video, so spoilers for that. The number of female audience that checked out from Mad Max Fury Road to Furiosa, 80%.
Jesus, more than I even thought.
You would have thought that the number of female viewers should have increased, since it's so much diversity,
women power,
and everything like that. No, instead, down by 80%. And again, it brings me back to my favorite example to use here. When Rambo Last Blood and the female-centric Charlie's Angels remake, the feminist one, when they opened practically back to back, more women went to see Rambo than went to see the girl power Charlie's Angels. This is not even a joke. This is my favorite
it's absolutely
example. And I'll never stop bringing it up.
Yeah, I'm glad you found that too, Andre, because that goes exactly to our point, right? And again, I don't want to piss on RLM. I like RLM. I've watched them for years. In fact, so I've always been a fan. I try to watch their newer videos, but I've gotten to the point where I don't watch their reviews anymore. The only things I watch are like their goof videos where they do like the B movies and stuff like that, because their modern takes on most films, I don't agree with anymore, because they're so far removed. And I think that's kind of the point we're getting to here, is that the studios are so far removed from this now that, look, we even got the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which got re-released this last weekend in theaters, hopping in the top 10.
Yeah.
Like, who'd imagine that?
I just want to say one thing about Red Letter Media. I haven't seen this video everyone's talking about, because I barely have time to watch anyone else's content. I'm too busy making
I didn't finish watching it.
Yeah, but I will say this. I love and respect Red Letter Media, and they're free to take us on and call us out any day of the week. And we are free to point out that we were right all along.
Yeah. Well, and many
They
of
weren't
us
really
who are,
calling you out because I watched the whole thing. They were actually
Okay.
talking about how much does Hollywood do remakes and sequels now compared to the golden age of Hollywood. That's what the
well, that's
whole
not
video
totally
was
true.
about.
They took a bunch of YouTubers, they took all of their thumbnails. They said all these thumbnails are just rage. All these people are just raging on the female being the lead, and that's not the problem. And they completely disregarded all of us, lumped us all in. And there was a lot of people who are pissed because they gave the movie positive reviews, and their thumbnail was in that clip. So I don't know about that script. There are a lot of people who took that
They
way,
did
and
that
that's
for
the
like
way they basically
90
said it.
seconds.
Yeah, and that 90 seconds, guess what they did? They took the main problem and they completely removed it from their discussion and argument. And that's the problem. And I quit watching after 5 minutes because their research is like 5 years old. This is shit that all of us were saying 5 years ago. It's like none of this stuff is new. They're completely missing the point, and that's the point I was getting at, because the proof is in the pudding right here in front of our face, right? We've got If, a movie that's been out for, 4 weeks now, still hanging in there at number 3. Garfield, kicking ass at number 2. Movies that people can take kids to. King of the Planet of the Apes still hanging in there. Fall Guys on video on demand. Been on video on demand for 3 weeks now? Still hanging in there. No, it's been 2 or 3 because I watched it like 2 weeks ago, script.
I think it came up 2-3 weeks ago. Yes.
Could have been that one.
Yes, it has been because I watched it 2 weeks ago. They brought it out on streaming within like 3 or 4 weeks of it coming out in theaters. And this week, Furiosa hit streaming. But the point we're getting to is that if you put something in the theater people want to see, like Bad Boys Ride or Die, guess what? They're going to come out and see it because they were lowballing this movie from the start. They were saying this movie was going to make somewhere between 40 and 50 million, and it actually made 56, and worldwide it's already broke 100.
You mean worldwide, including North America, or worldwide on its
no,
worldwide? Okay, in total.
Yeah. Oh, and I checked, and Fall Guy did come out 3 weeks ago on streaming. Was released on May 21st.
Yeah, I know, because the movie had barely been out in theaters because they're doing the same thing to Furiosa now.
Everyone was shocked and pissed off because they just surprise dropped it. No announcement. It just appeared on May 21st.
Well, and that's stupid too. Why wouldn't you promote it? Like it's a silly world we live in.
They figured it was dead. They didn't think about the word of mouth because the word of mouth is carrying that movie along now, where Furiosa, on the other hand, just is dying on the vine, and it will completely fall out of the top 10 next week. But no, Bad Boys Ride or Die came out, and a lot of people were concerned with, the slap and all this, that, and the other. And frankly, I'm curious if you guys think outside of our group here, like our sphere of YouTube and media, news media, if anybody really gives a shit. And I think
about the slap.
Yeah, the slap that was heard around the world.
I don't think so.
I said when it happened, it's going to boost his career after a couple of years.
Yeah.
I
think the public are very susceptible to the brand and are willing to hang on to their favorite brands. Come hell and high water. That's just the nature of how people defend. Well, we notice it too. The Star Wars crazy people, and I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about this crazy new crop that are willing to defend Acolyte to the death. That's called fandom. So I don't think Will is going to be hurt by this. Depends on the movie too, right?
It does indeed.
Yeah, and I don't know if anybody else has seen it but me.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't had the time yet. I'm just looking at the box office. The previous one opened in 2020, opened at 62 million. So
yeah, a little bit better.
Attendance has gone down a little bit when you take inflation into account. But still, this is what I said to begin with. Considering where Hollywood is today, right now, those are not too bad numbers.
You want to know what I think a problem is, though, Andre? Besides the slap might be a small percentage of that. I think a big problem is advertising. The studios need to figure out a better way of advertising, because you know what a problem with some of these movies I've been hearing lately? I've so many people who have said, I didn't even know there was a new Bad Boys out this weekend.
Mm.
And I'm like, I don't know how that could be, because they're out there promoting the hell out of it. So whatever they're doing isn't reaching the public.
Well, there's a lot of promotion on platforms like this, YouTube, and a lot of people have ad blockers, so they don't see those commercials. A lot of people have ad blockers on Twitter. They also go onto streaming sites, but they don't pay for the ads. So they're not getting the commercials that promote the very movies because they're paying to not see them.
See, that I can see as being part of the problem big time. But otherwise, there's got to be something. Maybe it's because television isn't as prevalent as it used to be, so things are so scattered. But I mean, when we see like trailers like Deadpool, everybody spreads them far and wide. You know, that part helps them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like that's the thing. I had not seen a movie like this in a while, where so many people where I'd said something about it and they're like, oh, I didn't even know it was out. Oh, I didn't even know they did another one.
So
There's
are we
Bad Boys? You know, like
I'm wondering if we're in a new era where the plan needs to be for these studios to just try to keep the movies in the theaters for as long as possible and let people discover them in the theater, word of mouth. This is a very interesting thing that's happening here. It's usually what happens is that every single weekend or second weekend, the big there'd be big movies all the time, and then the movies that would be in the theater would be gone, like completely gone. I've never seen these kinds of middling movies stay in theaters for as long as these have. This is a very interesting potential business model.
Well, the weird thing is it feels almost like we've gone back to the 80s almost.
Which
like, or the 70s and 80s. Like, basically what I mean is like to where instead of every weekend, every major studio would put out a movie, they would have like one movie every other week, and then you would alternate with like, it'd be like this week Disney and Fox would put out a movie or so. The next week Warner Brothers and somebody would put out. You'd only have like one big movie a month, if that. Like, these movies didn't come out like constantly like they are now. What happened was between straight to video, cable, and then streaming, studios have pumped out more material and content than they ever have before. They went from producing like on an average of like 50 to 55 movies a year to like 4 or 5 times that in some cases,
but not all of them going to theater.
That's just it. Yeah.
On average, the studios put out about 24 major movies per year to the theaters.
Yeah, it used to be that way. Now they're pumping out a lot more than that. That's my point.
Yeah, but not to the theaters.
Not now anymore, but before we went into COVID, yeah, like that's the thing, is we're kind of back. That's what I'm saying, is we're kind of back to that point where, because people are like, oh, there's just nothing in the theaters. Like, no, this used to be how it used to be. You just had to go see the movies that were out there, and then eventually something else would come along.
I don't remember them staying in the theaters for this long, though. I just
really.
And are we saying that the Fall Guy has been benefiting from staying out in the theaters? Is that the point you're trying to make?
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what I'm getting at. Because movies used to be to where you had a 6-month window, regardless. If a movie did better, it was bigger than that. Like, if a movie like Roger Rabbit didn't come out till the following Christmas in '89, for instance, on video. It came out in '88, but it played so long in theaters, they didn't bring it out on video right away. Now, other movies, like if it plays, it does its thing, after about 3-4 months, it falls off. Well, then of course it's going to be on video in 6 months, right? But that was still that much of a window back then. You had that much time to play with. Now it's like, if your movie doesn't play on the opening weekend, you're done. They cut you. And so we're at a point now where these movies like Fall Guy and other ones that have been dumped on streaming so quickly are still playing in theaters because word of mouth is getting around. And for some people, if you're single, I'm sure, or if you're going on a Tuesday and on a matinee, it's still cheaper than renting it or buying it on streaming. But again, we've kind of hit this weird place where it's kind of like it used to be, but also different, because people aren't going to go spend. That's the other thing, I guess, that is the bigger question, and people have been discussing the last week or so, has been, the pricing of these films and how much people are paying. And, when you go to most theaters in a city, it's going to cost you more than $10 for a ticket per person.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's a big issue, I think. And Tarantino was talking about that again this last week as well.
Yeah. And
what does he
is
know?
Not wrong.
Well, and I was asking people how they would feel about like pricing for films depending on the film, and I don't think it's a good idea, but it's like we already are kind of being trained to do that, if you think about it, because we already pay less for movies like Sound of Freedom, or if I were to go see If right now, it's just in the standard theater. But if I wanted to go see Bad Boys, I've got the option to go see it in a bigger, more elaborate screen. Well, I'm going to pay more of a premium price to see that. See, so we already kind of are doing that in a way.
We have that now. If we go to just a regular screen without the Atmos sound and everything, then that's cheaper than going to the IMAX version.
That's what I mean. And like I said, like Sound of Freedom, when that came out, that sure as hell wasn't shown in no IMAXs.
Yeah.
I can't think of one place that probably would have. But yeah, when you're looking at 10, 15, 20 bucks a ticket in some cases, because they add on all these fees for this, that, and the other, and half those the theater aren't even getting. It's usually Fandango or whoever.
Well, there's a lot of poles that needs to be greased. So, yeah.
But the people that I've talked to that have seen Bad Boys, they've enjoyed it, and I think that's what's going to help the film word of mouth wise. There's no like left-leaning politics. If anything, there's some more right-leaning politics in it.
This is something that the script also has been saying, that Hollywood, that apart from Disney, everyone else have kind of like figured out where the audience is and are responding accordingly.
Told you this would be the year.
Well, and because when I was doing my Criticalist review, I had to think about it a little bit. I'm like, this is the first movie in a while outside of Sound of Freedom where, just because of the way politics are right now, I have to say that this movie leans into the right because of the pro-family, pro-male, pro-father-son, pro-Second Amendment. There's just so many things in this. I'm like, okay, I guess that makes it. Yeah, exactly. Like Paulie just said, Second Amendment, baby. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about.
I guess Paulie has seen it.
There is a scene in this movie that everybody has said. I only saw it in the theater with like 2 or 3 other people because it was like the first showing of the day. But everybody else, as I talked to, there's this one big scene in the film that we're calling the Second Amendment scene. That everybody said that gets everybody going and either up and out cheering or screaming and hollering, and it's fun scene. So this movie has things to talk about. And the beauty of it, I've been telling people, is with the trailers that are out there, even if you haven't seen the trailers, good, just go see it blind. And I said, otherwise, the trailers, this is one of the few times in the last few years here where we've had a movie that they didn't give away the best parts of the movie in the trailer. Like they saved a bunch of surprises for the movie.
This is not my kind of movie. I never go to these kinds of movies.
No, and that's fair. But you know what they've done, Paul, is they've gotten to the point now with this franchise where it's like the Lethal Weapon series, right?
Oh, yeah,
it's more about the family dynamic and all that kind of stuff. But yeah.
Which is kind of like natural as the characters get older.
Yeah.
And you steer further away from Michael Bay.
Yes. That's the other beauty of it, is these directors, Bilal and Adil, or whatever his name is, the 2 guys that worked on Batgirl and Miss Marvel and the original, or not original Bad Boys, but Bad Boys for Life. Because that's the thing. You got to think about it. Bad Boys for Life came out almost 2 decades after the last movie. It had been almost 20 years. So like those first 2 movies are kind of like their own things. And then these 2 movies are like, they work more in tandem, but they also keep drawing from the past. But like, yeah, if you haven't seen the 3rd one, you definitely have to see that to see this new one. It picks up kind of from there. So yeah. But no, and I think people are like that aspect of it, and it has that vibe to it, the Lethal Weapon kind of vibe. So yeah. Mephisto, we were talking about it the other day. Yeah, I think you were the one that told me all the people got up and cheered in the audience at where you were at. But yeah, so no, I don't think that theaters are dead per se. I don't think cinema is dead per se. I think people are just tired. I guess to get to the main point here, I think people are just tired of paying this much money for crappy movies, especially when they're not sure what they're going to get out of it. When it comes to things that have been modernized so much, and then you have things like Fall Guy and stuff that kind of suffer on the vine because people aren't quite sure if they're going to take the chance on it. But at the end of the day, I think it'll leg out okay. But the studio hurt themselves by putting this out on video on demand. They're their own worst enemy right now, I think. Wouldn't you guys agree or disagree?
Yes.
I think,
well, the studios, of course, are going to be their own worst enemy, but they're finally, the chickens are coming home to roost. All the patterns that they have put forth that have basically made people resistant to going to the theaters have hit hard now. Now that you have a handful of movies that are actually not doing the very thing that people are worried about out there and they're not performing well, they're going to perform well on streaming, and you're going to get people probably by the end of this year or early next year saying, man, you know what? I really wish I saw those movies in theaters at the time, but you know, Hollywood just made so many bad premise films that I just didn't feel trustworthy at it. But at least I got to see it on streaming, and if they ever re-release it, I'm going to go see it. And I will say this, Furiosa is probably going to be one of them because it's not a girl boss film. It's a little bit long, but it's pretty entertaining. And there's a character that humbles Furiosa in it. So like that's something you don't get in girl boss films.
Script is right about that. Furiosa is not a girl boss. Or what I've been saying all the time. It's just a perception. It is.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. The perception is the problem.
Wise. Yeah, the perception is the problem, not the movie itself.
Doesn't matter at this point because you also have the other problem, beyond the female problem, you have the secondary character problem, which is why I always, you know, shit on like Miles Morales and people like that, is because people don't give a shit past the original character. They don't want some secondary character. It doesn't matter if this was a male either. They'd probably react the same way if it was like, you know, some other character that's not Max, but like another.
But part of the problem with these female incidents, I don't mind them at all. I think there might be some brand issues in terms of, yes, the fact that the audience is, you know, wants to see Mel Gibson. People are used to they're what is it? They people like habits. That's what all this stuff is. It's a habit. But you know, you know, when I started talking about, you know, why didn't they do a Russ Myers version of this? And I went off, and the other day I saw Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, which is like a crazy, outrageous art film.
Yeah.
With European women who you can barely understand what they're saying. And you
don't need to understand them.
And no, they're just constantly wrestling with each other. So, but you know, the point is, I don't understand if you're going to put beautiful women, and I made this point before, why do they make them ugly? Like,
well, and the proof is in the pudding. Look at Barbie. What Barbie was popular. Was Barbie ugly any time in the movie? No, not really. I mean,
but that's directed towards women. But I mean, don't put beautiful women like Charlize Theron and Anya Taylor-Joy in these movies and then make them look ugly.
Yes,
there's one other slight issue with Furiosa, as myself and others have pointed out. It's a Mad Max movie without Mad Max, and it's also a Furiosa movie without Furiosa because it doesn't have Charlize Theron.
Correct. So
and you're right. In both cases, they made
they
made two beautiful women very ugly, which is another problem we have right now.
Yeah, they constantly do that. I would have rather Anya Taylor-Joy looked a little bit more like some of the women from Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. I probably would have watched it.
Well, and honestly, I mean, I wouldn't have probably watched it anyway because I was not a fan of Fury Road, and that's my reasoning. I don't care if it's that good or not. I just don't care. I don't care about anything in this franchise outside of Max, and that's why. To me, it's Mad Max. I mean, if he had done, and I think we discussed this on Midnight's Edge After Dark this last week, where I said, and maybe I brought it up here. If I did, I apologize. But it was like, if they had just done Furiosa first and not told us it was a Mad Max movie, and then just let the surprise be out there, I think people would have reacted differently. And then now do Fury Road, then it would have been a different story. But the way they did it, it made no sense because you're promising us a Mad Max movie a few years back, and we didn't really get one. We got a de facto sideline remake of Road Warrior. Just it cost 10 times as much. And then now you're putting this out there, a movie that nobody really asked for, 7 years too late. That's the other problem. I mean, there's so many problems stacked up against this movie. The fact that people feel the need to defend it, it's like, why? You're just you're fighting a losing battle here, and it's not going to help anybody at the end of the day. They should have known better to do this in the first place because the last one failed.
Well, you should be blaming Kevin Tsujihara because George Miller wanted to do Furiosa first and then Fury Road after.
And I don't even know if that still would have worked. Yeah.
But you just said that's what you wanted to see.
I said that had a better chance is my point. And I still don't know if that would have worked is the point. Because at the longer we go on with this thing, nobody wants another Mad Max movie without Mel. That's all we really want at the end of the day. And there's a lot of people arguing, "Oh, that wouldn't make money." I'm like, why do you think that wouldn't make money? I think it'd make more money than Fury Road would have.
In the end, though, there is a little bit of 2020ism going on here in that creative people and Miller's no slack. They put the best thing together that they think will work, and sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. You got to be careful with being so not de facto. What's the word? Certain of your views, because it's it's a crapshoot.
The audience will change them for you. That's the other part too. You never know.
You never know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's see what you guys are talking about there in the audience. We've got Jaloja again sending in 14 South African Rand, says, why doesn't Warner Brothers make a sequel to the Bakshi Lord of the Rings for PVOD? I don't know. I don't know if there's really the demand for it, but I'm all for it. I don't see why.
I have a theory.
What's that?
Because that would be a third Lord of the Rings continuity. Why would they want another continuity when there already is a competing one over at Amazon? They want things on brand. Warner are going to make sure that everyone knows that this is our Lord of the Rings. This is the Peter Jackson verse. Why would they put anything out to mess with that themselves?
Yeah, I mean, they own the rights to it. They can do it if they wanted to, but I mean, I see where Andre's coming from.
Why would they want
it's like kind of like the whole they're going to do a Snyderverse and another universe. No, they wouldn't do that. Yeah,
it would be kind of like the stupid thing they're doing with DC right now. You have the new upcoming Gunverse, but then at the same time you have the competing the Batverse. It would
which
be
I'm not so sure it's going to be so competing by the time we get to Superman, but we'll see. People forget how long we have and how long out the Batman 2 is right now. And I have a theory now that the only reason that movie is being kept into play is in case Superman does fail. They have that to fall back on, because otherwise, if Superman succeeds, bye-bye Batman 2.
Oh, for sure. But the point is, it's kind of like they're doing something to undermine their own branding.
I was thinking about that, though. I'm like, why else would you keep this thing in play? Because from everybody I've talked to and discussed it with, up into including Script, who I'm sure has talked to other people about it, there's nothing that indicates this movie's remotely close to shooting.
No. This is like them hedging their bets to a degree.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm getting at. Like, they're like waiting to see how Superman's going to perform. And if Superman fails, then they have the Batman to fall back on for a bit. If not, doesn't matter. They got Brave and the Bold coming like a year after that or whatever. So, sorry if that was what you were going to say, Script, but yeah.
Nope.
But all right, let's keep moving on. We got Mikey in the house, who should be on the panel, but he's probably busy working on tech stuff or something or other. He always is.
It's Monday, meaning it's Monday. 911 calls from his clients.
Yeah, every day, all day long. After hearing good things, I went to see Bad Boys last night and loved it. Oh, I didn't know you went to see it. Oh, that's right. Yeah, you did tell me that. You went to see it. Never mind. Reminded me of the normal experience of going to movies and having fun in the crowd in my theater. Loved it. And even clapped when it earns the clap.
I want to see it now. I may go see it myself, and I haven't seen
Have you even seen the last one? I was going to say. Because that's what made me kind of want to see this one was the last one. Because I was not like, even, because like, look, I've brought this up on the reviews before, but I love the first movie. First movie was one of my favorite movies of the 90s. And the second one really turned me off. I'm like, everything that's wrong with the second one is all the Michael Bayism shit in it. It's a Michael Bay movie. It's not a Bad Boys movie. But the third movie takes it back to formula. And that movie impressed the hell out of me. And that was one of the last movies to get released before the shutdown. So that's one of the main reasons why it was the biggest film of that year. But I mean, I watched it again and again twice in the last week, the third film. Since I watched it before the fourth one, and then I just watched it again yesterday in the background again. But yeah, I've been wanting to go see the fourth one again. It's been a while since I've seen a movie like this where it's like, oh my God, it's just a decent film. Is it a 10 out of 10? No. But it's just fun.
At this point, you don't need 10 out of 10 movies to win back the faith of audiences. What you need are a bunch of 7 out of 10s in a row that doesn't offend the audience. So
not only that, it's technically less than 2 hours.
It's exactly what's needed. That's exactly what the doctor ordered. We get 10 of those in a row. the audience is going to go back to the big screen again. That's what it's going to take.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, in the last couple of weeks here, I've seen some really good films. I watched The Beekeeper. Fall Guy was okay. This was really good. I mean, there's some good stuff out there. I was even impressed by things like Wonka and stuff recently. So I think things can heal. It's just going to take, like Andre just said, I think you're right. Just like
the Acolyte writers should watch Beekeeper just as a demonstration of the fact that just because you're in a business doesn't mean you talk about the business. In fact, when you're working and you're experienced and you've been doing it for a long time, the last thing you talk about is what it is that you're doing. You're talking about other things. Hey, what flavor gum is that you've got? Oh, spearmint. I've never seen you chew spearmint before. I thought I'd change while bullets are flying all around you, right? That's how you want to write something. And the Acolyte is just, they need to watch The Beekeeper. The Beekeeper, that's actually was one of my favorite things about The Beekeeper was the two cops. How
well, you just explained
they never talked about their work while they were working.
You just explained Bad Boys. What you just said there is basically encapsulating it's even that main scene in the trailer, whereas there's a shootout and Martin Lawrence goes to get a jelly bean because it even has more context in the film because he's not supposed to be eating sweets. So then, of course, the one he catches is the black one, and he goes, he spits it out. Nobody likes those black motherfuckers. Yeah, that's the kind of shit you have going on in the middle of the gunfights in this movie.
and script will agree that that's the most fun thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, don't talk about you can have your exposition about the investigation, but you're supposed to be actually talking about something else at the same time to make it more intriguing and fun and interesting.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're interviewing a perp, you gotta get to the point, right? You're not going to have a friendly conversation with them, but with a fellow cop, like you just said, with Martin Lawrence and the slap guy. I can't even remember.
Will Smith.
Will Smith. That's exactly how you want to write those things.
Yeah. I got to say though,
one
Paul,
of the best interrogation scenes was written in Dragnet, which is between Tom Hanks, and he just says to the guy, I think his name was Mutt or something, it's just you, me, your balls in this drawer, and then they just cut to him slamming the drawer, and you don't know what's going on in there, and then Joe Friday's just sipping his coffee, going, "This is pretty good," and it's a funny thing that skips the exposition but gets into a joke about what they're trying to accomplish, and it actually reveals a lot of character.
Dan Aykroyd, right? Is Friday?
Dan Aykroyd is Joe Friday.
Dan Aykroyd is Joe Friday.
Yeah, and I just have to comment on what you were saying, Paul, about the writers of The Acolyte seeing The Beekeeper. I mean, if they did, their therapists are going to earn so much money after that because they're going to have so many various mental breakdowns that they'll be traumatized forever and they'll never get over it. Well, I don't know that anything is necessarily going to help them get any better. But
there was a lot of therapy work in episode 2, and if we ever get to talking about The Acolyte, even if we are going to dare doing it in this,
we have 6 more episodes to go.
But there was a real insert moment in episode 2 that I just laughed at. So.
Well, then we got Pablo Papano here who sends in 5. Says Will Smith benefits from the public not watching the Oscars. That's true, but they had the most after that happened. Though I think they had the biggest audience they had in 2 decades, probably or better. After that, because everybody's waiting to see if something happens. It kind of saved the Oscars for a hot minute.
Yeah.
But we got C-Man here says I don't mind movies staying in theaters longer. Cannot make opening weekends often, and nice to just hit the theater and see something when there's time. Yeah.
Yeah, with these multiplexes, the fact that when a Marvel movie came in and all 9 out of the 10 theaters would be completely wiped clean of the previous movies, and then you'd be inflicted by the Marvel movie. That I always found that to be gross, although they're trying to make as much money as they possibly can, right, in the shortest period of time. And that's the other weird thing, is that if a decent movie does get swept away with the incoming blockbuster, I rarely see any of these movies sneak back in if the blockbuster is not so hot.
Right. Well, and we got to keep this in mind. Like, movies can survive. We're actually at the anniversary of the weekend of 40 years ago, when both Gremlins and Ghostbusters were released on the same weekend.
Wow.
And I know that blows people's minds because it's like, yeah, movies used to be able to play in tandem and make a shit ton of money. Because both those movies wound up in the top 10 films of that year. Ghostbusters being technically the number one if you don't count Beverly Hills Cop because it came out in December. And depending on where you go to check it out, they sometimes push Beverly Hills Cop into 85 for some reason. But technicalities aside, yeah, I mean, two big movies can survive. You can have that happen. Look at Barbenheimer. That's a great example of that, right? But you also have to put stuff out there that people want to see. And this is where, you know, people are complaining about no movies out there. This is what I was saying 3 months ago when I'm like, what the fuck is Sony doing releasing Ghostbusters in the middle of March? Like, what the hell? Like, right now, people would be saying, oh, yeah, we can go see Ghostbusters. There's a Ghostbusters movie out because it's the middle of summer. That's when you expect to see something like that, not March. So, yes, they need to get back to the summer season and understand that, yeah, the Marvel movie thing is dead. Marvel movies gave them this false sense that they could release a movie any fucking time of the year like that and it would play. Not anymore. That's not going to happen unless it's a Deadpool or something like that. The exception to the rules, you're not going to have that to fall back on anymore. And they need to start to relearn how to do this again. They need to make more Sound of Freedoms. They need to make more Garfields. They need to make more Bad Boys 4s. They need to make more original film. Look, if Lord of the Rings is showing up, that's a good sign that you need to make more Lord of the Rings. It's probably a good thing that they have announced now that they're doing the thing with Peter Jackson and all that stuff. Now is probably the time to do it, right? Get some more original material out there that is selling the actor and the concept and not an IP, and build a new IP like a John Wick. That's what they need to get back to doing again. And I've said this before, and it's really ridiculous when we've gotten to this point where they have completely flipped around what they were doing back in the day. Remember, it used to be the sequels, remakes, and all that kind of business were only a small portion of the business. The rest of it was trying to build up these smaller pictures, or, you know, your Schwarzenegger picture or whatever it was this year. You were, you know, your tent pole this year. That's why it was called a tent pole. You only had one big movie that you shoved all your money in hopes that it would win. And while you all had these others, when we brought this, I talked about this several times, Script and Paul and Andre, you know, so I'm just saying the same shit we've said a million times. But yeah, they just got to get back to formula, like somebody said in the chat.
The formula they never ever should have deviated from in the first place. And it was entirely stupid of them to do.
No, because they could have had their cake and ate it too, had they just not squeezed the teat of Marvel so hard, and mostly with woke at the end, to finish off that last drop out of it. Because let's be real, that's what Deadpool is. Deadpool's that last little drop of milk they're getting out of that superhero teat right now. And that's where Superman is up in the air. And I don't mean that to be punny. It's like, we don't know. Because I don't know if people are done with superheroes or not.
And if they are,
people go to a movie if it entices them. That's the thing. Like, again,
true.
There's no surefire way to know exactly what audiences want, but you can put out feelers to figure out what would actually intrigue them. Then you craft something towards that and hope it works. That's basically all you can really do, and hope for the best. Again, you try to figure out exactly what the audience wants and you give them that, they will walk out of that movie once it's done and not go back again, because there's no more reason to see it, because you didn't give them anything extra other than just what they want. You have satisfied the basic needs, but you've not given them anything else to cause them to come back. And that's the biggest problem, because that's the factory type of filmmaking that Marvel was doing when it came to woke. They knew what woke was. They knew what people wanted in woke. They gave them what those woke people want. They didn't show up, and the rest of the audience also rejected it as well. So you have to be a bit more abstract. You have to take a bit more risks, and you have to actually, throw in some questions to pique the curiosity of the audience, to make them go, you know what, that seems like a really cool idea. I wonder how they're going to do that. Let's go, Saturday night and see what they do.
Well, and there is a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. Now, I don't know if superhero films will ever have, I don't think they'll ever reach the height again they did during the, Endgame MCU phase, whatever you want to call it, that era. But
interesting discussion.
I've been hearing a few rumblings and rumors talk about this, and this came up again yesterday. And I think it was when I was on George's channel. There is talks in Disney right now that basically Kathleen Kennedy hasn't learned her damn lesson. she is going full bore on the woke, as we've seen with the Acolyte and her being out there and praising and talking about all the forced female shit and all that business, whatever. But Marvel, on the other hand, from rumors they know they fucked up, is what we're hearing now. So I wonder, it's kind of, I wonder if there's a little light at the end of the tunnel after we get past the Captain America 4 and the Thunderbolts and a few of these shit movies that nobody wants that they have to put out because they've already made them 3 times. You wish I was joking, Paul, but I'm not.
No, I'm not joking. I'm laughing.
I know you're laughing because it's true. Exactly, because they have shot now the Captain America, a movie that was supposed to be out already. They're in their 3rd rounds of reshoots now. But I guess the rumor going around is that they learned they effed up and they've got to try and fix this ship. I don't know if you've heard anything similar to that, Andre, but yeah.
No more than you have. I'd be curious to hear what the script has to say about it, and I have thoughts on them having to release it just because it's so expensive. But script, have you heard anything more recent about Marvel having learned their lesson?
Other than the fact that they hired Terry Matalas to basically try him out on the Vision Disney Plus show.
That's something we kind of look.
That's a good, interesting direction because there might be something positive there. Another producer, I think, left Marvel to go start their own thing recently. I can't remember who that person's name was. I read that in the trades, but we'll have to wait and see right now because Marvel's got a huge debt. To your comment on, I don't think superhero movies will ever be as big as Endgame again. Yes, they will. Maybe not in our lifetimes, but they will. Everything will always surpass the threshold that had been established. Always happens. People thought, oh, nothing would be as big as Star Wars, in the 80s. Well, guess what? Marvel came and became bigger than Star Wars. So something else will always come and be bigger. There's never a limit or a ceiling on these types of things. It will always be broken by something else one day.
That's true because they have said, like in 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when these kids are going back on those are going to be their movies that they are nostalgic for pretty much. So like, yeah, you're probably not wrong. There'll be a resurgence at some point. I mean, I guess I don't know if it'll be in my lifetime.
Someone might do a Flash Gordon movie that makes $5 billion at the box office.
It never happen.
It could
happen. Yeah, absolutely. But my thought though is that they're not doing themselves any big favors in the short term. I was actually really disappointed with the Terry Matalas news. Not that Terry Matalas is hired. That's fantastic. But that he's hired for the wrong project. Because again, we are still going back to this fucking WandaVision well. And I apologize for the swearing, but WandaVision, which is a pet project of Kevin Feige, how much damage has that done across so many other movies and series now? I mean, WandaVision ruined.
I have an analogy for you, Andre. If what was going on with Marvel was the whole woke problem to begin with, WandaVision is basically their Dylan Mulvaney.
Kind of, yeah. And they're going back to that. They're like,
exactly.
No, we're going to get it right this time. And absolutely, I do believe that Terry Matalas, he really won me over with the Picard season 3, and I do believe that he is going to do very, very well with a Vision series. But when you have someone of his talent, maybe you should spend him towards
the Fantastic Four.
Well, anything really that actually builds
anything that's not.
And that doesn't require a bunch of homework, and that's kind of like stuck in a dead sidetrack. And that's what this is. They needed to get him onto something new that is actually going to build some excitement for the future.
X-Men, something.
And they just have to get away from this whole WandaVision disaster. But still, we have more rumors about the Scarlet Witch movie and everything like that. Just keep on building on this WandaVision thing. It wasn't that big a hit. I don't know how much fan interest there is in it, but they just keep going back to this horrendous well. And then they are going to waste the talents of Terry Matalas on it when they needed to put him on like a Doctor Doom series or something, anything that builds towards the future rather than something that's just continuing the mistakes of Feige's worst period.
And that's the thing that's fucked up about this whole thing is they have the tools to be able to at least right the ship with X-Men and Fantastic Four, right? Because those are two big enough properties that if they could just get that magic working again, it doesn't have to be as good as it was before. Just get it close to. Then I think they'll be okay.
Disney violence edict has had a profound effect on the movies.
You're not the first one to say that. Yeah,
it changed Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
So people don't talk about it a whole lot, and I think it's one of the things that will make Deadpool work, is that it's not under that auspices, but everything else is going to be. It's terrible. It's a unbelievably restrictive, a bit of business.
Yeah, let's hope for Deadpool, because that's
what
one
that
thing
is what will make Deadpool refreshing, is that it will be violent.
Well, yeah, and it now even has the R rating confirmed, which is good, because that project has to work, because if it doesn't, Marvel are screwed. And then we can just hope that they're able to get something good out after the new Captain America movie, which I think is going to be a disaster, even if they're remaking it for the third time, and Thunderbolts, which there's no way can possibly be any good. But the problem is that those two movies are being released, and I honestly don't know why. I think they would have been far better off just scrapping the two of them and moving on a different direction. This is what I was saying for the entirety of the strikes, when everything was on lockdown. Like this, not on lockdown, but everything was on halt. All pencils were down. This was when they had the opportunity to kind of like wipe the slate clean, just abandon projects that were started, do not continue them, get new people in, get Terry Matalas in, and then have him be the next James Gunn and start rebuilding the MCU from there. Instead, they are continuing with the exact same crap they were doing before. Deadpool 3 is a fluke. Then it's straight back to Captain America 4 and the not Inhumans, but the Thunderbolts, And what do we have after that? You have Terry Matalas in the wrong project. You have him in a Vision, another sequel to WandaVision. This is not how you fix the MCU.
Well, we don't know. I mean, there might be something good to that. You also have Daredevil Born Again, which they threw out the old writers. They brought in new ones. The irony is the fact that Disney had the out. They hit the 90-day threshold of the writer's strike where they could have force majeured some of those films and not suffered as horribly as they could have. And, I mean, they technically did it to Daredevil Born Again. They force majeured those guys out. Yet here, and a lot of other projects got force majeured too, or like a lot of stuff that would be really cringy. But not on the Disney side, all on the other studios side. So yeah, they had their opportunity and they decided to squander it, and now they're going to pay for it for the next 3 years.
And the thing is, larding Captain America onto Falcon, and let's just be blunt about it, because they wanted Captain America to be black. The thing is, Falcon was already an interesting character, and one of the defining characteristics of Captain America was that he actually had the superhero serum. He was a super, whereas Falcon isn't. And now they give him a shield. He's no more super, just having the shield. Like, it's the dumbest thing.
Yep.
And so they took a very charismatic actor. I'm sorry, he's so charismatic, I can't remember his name. But
Anthony Mackie.
I loved him as Falcon, except when they stuck all the stupid words in his, BLM words in his mouth. But other than that,
I'm very disappointed in how you can't remember this. You need to do better.
I'm 70 years old. Don't ask me to do better.
Well, that's what he did.
and so, my point is that why not just make an Anthony Mackie Falcon movie? Again, we are talking about, we need more street level superheroes. He's a perfect street level superhero.
I watched the hell out of an Anthony Mackie Falcon. movie with excitement because
Yeah,
he's
leave it
also in
alone.
Deadpool.
Let
Yeah.
it be.
You know what they did? You know
Make
what they
it
did
something
by
it isn't.
promoting him to Captain America? Sorry, I did not mean to interrupt.
Sorry.
They promoted him to his highest level of incompetence, to the
You're right.
level where he can't perform because no one wants him there, and so he's been set up to fail.
Yeah, and how is he going to be able to differentiate himself as Captain America without the serum, the super serum?
Crying
I don't know.
narcissism if anyone is stronger.
I don't know. So he's got the shield and he's got the wings.
Well, he used to have the wings, because now there's a new Falcon, so he can't go back to that now, can he?
They've defalconed him.
Yeah, there's a new Falcon now.
He still has
Oh, yeah, you missed that? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a Mexican Falcon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's now
There's no way back even.
So he's now a powerless Iron Man.
Kinda, yeah.
He's not even an Iron Man. He has no
Sorry, not Iron Man. Captain. Sorry,
Captain America. Yeah, Captain America.
I keep now mixing up my.
No, he's more like Hawkeye at this point, but he's just no
without
good
the arrows.
And Hawkeye is
with wings, and then you got Falcon, who still has wings. So you got two flying superhero partners.
Yeah, it's kind of dumb.
Wow.
Let's keep moving here. We got Jesus Davila sending in 5. Says, Tom, if someone saw Bad Boys 1 and 2 and didn't see 3, could they still watch the newest one, or would they be confused? Well, you probably sent this in before I said this, but yeah, no, you have to have seen the first 3. And especially because 3 starts to call back to other movies, and then this one does as well. And there's things that happen in 3 that set this movie up. But that movie did it well without making it feel like it was a movie just setting up another movie, right? Like this movie just builds upon what was there. But it does, you do kind of need some of the backstory to get to 4. So yeah, I do recommend it. But you should enjoy it. Bad Boys for Life was really good. Grand Admiral Adam sends in a 17-month super member chat and says, just going to the theater and seeing what's playing doesn't really happen anymore. You have to plan ahead. Also, the Alamo near me closed down. Yeah, a bunch of Alamos closed down, I heard. That's too bad. But I mean, that's gonna happen. The theater's got to find a way to adapt to this as well.
I guess it must have been their last stand.
Oh.
Says what little American history I know.
Yeah, right. Jaloja also sends in another 35 South African rands. Thank you. Says, does Hollywood recognize the damage it's done to film, or is arrogance so high they can't compute how to fix it? Well, Script, this is probably one you could probably answer best.
Well, aside from Disney, the other studios already have started fixing it. I mean, Tom, you just named off 4 movies you saw already that were pretty good.
Yep.
It's.
I would almost throw Dune in there if it wasn't for that damn ending. Sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, listen, they're headed in the right direction. Once that information reaches audiences, and they start seeing this, they're going to find out the hard way. They're going to find out in streaming. They're going to be seeing those things like, oh, okay, I'll see this. Oh, that was in theaters. Huh. It came out last year. That's really good. I should have seen that. Maybe they're changing course. And the only studio you have to be wary of is the one with the big Disney moniker atop the title. So, yeah. It's going to take some time, but people will come back. I think the only way you're really going to see strong foot traffic back in theaters is if inflation decreases and prices get more reasonable again, and people can actually have disposable income to go out and do stuff for fun, because that's the thing that needs to change in order to get people to participate in this industry. Is like what Tarantino said years ago, and what he's repeating recently. It's the movie theaters are supposed to be the everyman entertainment, and if the everyman can't afford to do it, on top of concessions, ticket prices, gas, parking, all that stuff, they're not going to go. They're going to go to the more reliable, the more comfortable avenue, which is streaming, a flat price per month, where they get basically at any point and any time of day they can watch a movie. It may not be a theater experience, but they can at least get entertained. And you as a studio have to compete with that, and the only way you can do that is through pricing, and also by nudging certain political parties to be a bit more fiscally responsible.
And the other thing that's and I know we've discussed this to a point before, is they've almost forgot that the reason they were so resistant to home video and shit back in the day right? It's almost like they forgot that whole thing. It's like you had a point to a point. Like, yes, we wanted to be able to own our movies and stuff, but they were like, well, if people have movies at home, they won't go to the theaters anymore, right? Like that was their whole mentality of one of the main reasons, besides piracy and all these other things, why they didn't want to get behind home video back in the day. But now they're doing the opposite. It's like we were talking about earlier, where they're literally chopping off the legs of Fall Guy by throwing it out on streaming 3 weeks ago when it had only been out for like 3 weeks. Right.
Yeah.
So at that point, like, are you not seeing the insanity of like, why would people want to get out of their house to go see a movie like that when you already,
the studios figured out the scarcity problem when home video came out, which is the fact that they realized, well, wait a minute, if we're not releasing directly to home video, we have exclusivity in theaters. Let's just give ourselves a buffer so that we can actually sell them the same product twice. And that's what streaming should have been, as the final platform, the final format.
As we've discussed before,
of that, which we've already repeated. So once someone at the studio head starts realizing that's the method you got to go, we will start seeing that again, where, yes, as soon as it leaves theaters, guess what? It's not going to be on streaming right away. You're going to have to wait a little bit, because they're going to want to build up that anticipation so that when they do announce what streaming service it's going to be on, you're going to go, you as a customer, be like, man, I love that in theaters. I want to see it on streaming, or I want to buy it on home video. This is the method I'm going to take.
Yeah. Keep moving along here. We got Last Millennial, $4.99, says, Yo gang, would an $8 ticket be ideal price for a theater? Also, do movie studios get their box office money incrementally or at the end? I believe they get it all paid out at the end, right? Script, if like when a movie's done with its run.
Yeah, they it's usually an end quarter payout. I think it's done quarterly. So
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
However it works out, once it's done, it goes into the end quarter, and then they get their payout. They don't collect day and date.
Yeah, no. No, but $8 is probably, I mean, inflation wise, yeah, between $8 and $10 is most likely where they should be. But we're getting to a point where, I mean, when they're stacking on the premium stuff, and this is why, remember, like a couple weeks ago, we were talking about Planet of the Apes, and I couldn't figure out, or couldn't fathom or understand how come Planet of the Apes 2 of all of them ended up doubling the box office. Well, I figured out why, because that was in the height of the 3D bullshit. That's why, where they could double the ticket prices practically. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like going through that a little bit. I'm like, that makes sense. That's why there was a lot of movies that benefited from that, and that was one of them. So yeah, like they are pricing some people out, but in a lot of places, there's still, if you're smart about how you do it, I know a lot of people who get like the AMC ticket stubs and the movie passes and whatnot, and those can be used to your benefit if you want to go to the movies a lot, and you can save a lot of money that way and stuff. And in ways, as far as I know, those benefit the theaters, because then that's a deal they have through like the studios with the ticket programs and stuff, but then they still keep a lot of obviously they keep all the money from the concessions that they get. So that's what they really want you there for. Because this is what I was talking about the other day with a couple of people, because like the movies that they show, they don't really get to keep all that much out of those movies at the end of the day. And that's where it sucks for theaters, because all the things we complain about time and time again is because of that. So that's why they have to jack up the price on everything. It sucks. But yeah, the studios need to figure out a way to, it's the budget is a problem. Because they feel like, well, we can't charge less than this because we're spending this much money on these movies. Well, that's the problem when you got a movie like Garfield that only cost $60 million out there making this kind of money. That's the average price one of those kind of movies should cost. Bad Boys cost $100 million. Little high, but not insane, right? Like that, we're in that range, that 30 to $100 million range for these kind of movies should be your cap. You should not try to be going over $100 million right now. And at that point, once the studios can figure out how to do that, then the ticket prices can even off a little bit. And that's kind of what happened during, what was it like? What point was it there? Like the late 80s, early 90s, like when ticket prices kind of leveled off a little bit, or a little later than that maybe, but then they shot up again. But anyway, moving on, we got so many super chats to get through, and that's a good problem to have. So we appreciate it, guys. We got another topic to get to as well before we lose the panelists. JWT 6577 has been a member for 19 months. Thank you for that. We got a Proy 42 send in $2 super chat. Said sad how Lord of the Rings Fellowship and Two Towers is that high. I don't think it's sad so much as I just hope the studios pay attention to that things like that that is another thing that Disney has screwed themselves on, is the Vault program and how they used to do that.
We actually didn't really talk about that when we spoke about the box office, but
we didn't get into it too
Lord of the
much.
Rings movies they re-released, and they did fairly okay. But actually, I would say that this is good news, because, as you said, this should send a signal to Hollywood of, look here, this is how it's done. And also, this gives audiences who never got to see them in theaters during their original run, because remember, it's now more than 20 years since the release of the original movies. For those of us who were there, it may not seem that long,
Right.
but really it's been 20 years. I mean, it's the same distance in time now between us and the release of the original Lord of the Rings, or Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, as between the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings and the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings. This is kind of like the time frame we're talking. We're right about there now. This is how long that it has been. So it's a whole new generation that never got to see them in theaters before, and this is an opportunity for them to see that, what, movies, they don't have to be so bland as they have been in recent years. And of course, there are signs that movies are getting better, but this hopefully is just going to continue that trend. It is to hope. It is to hope. Any other thoughts on that before we move on?
Nope.
All right, moving on. But anyway, yeah, no, it's not sad at all that the box office is high. And Too Tired says for $5, as a woman, I appreciate beautiful women. Gives me ideas for changing up my own look from time to time. The uglification is a trans-pandering thing. Well, to be fair, from what we have heard from certain others, it's also an ugly, jealous women working in studios kind of thing, in addition to a trans-pandering thing. So it's a little bit of both. But
casting directors have a weird taste these days. They don't.
That's
they don't
that's what I mean, right? That
Yeah.
would go to what I have heard. A number of people say that it's actually partially it's women already in the studios that are responsible for this. Partially. Which I'm not defending, but it is what it is. But yeah.
Yep. I mean, you've got the two leads in Acolyte, and they're both competing to be the least attractive.
Are you talking about the one playing the twins, or
Yes,
anyone else?
one playing the twins, who's actually pretty cute in real life?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's my other problem with Star Wars. Apparently, all of Star Wars is supposed to be a duplicate of Calcutta. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
Like,
Where the other vast sets, the create landscapes, the things that make it a sci fantasy type of thing. Yeah.
Everything has to be Calcutta. That's the universe that Star Wars now exists in.
And since we brought up Star Wars, Tom, you just found some interesting news behind the scenes here. Why don't we bring those up right away? If you're here to hear that. I guess not.
Sorry, I stepped away for a second. What'd you need?
The tweet you just brought up behind the scenes. Let's bring that up before we move on with the super chats.
Okay. Yeah, the Acolyte one. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have some more numbers on the
Acolyte. We now have more official numbers. We now have the 5-day numbers, because remember, what Disney released initially were the 1-day numbers of 4.8 million. Then we put a video out earlier saying that really it's charting pretty badly on the illegal torrenting sites. And now we have the 5-day numbers from Variety saying on X, the first episode of The Acolyte reached 11.1 million views in its first 5 days. Now, that may sound like much, but then they continue. Almost 3 million short of what Ahsoka achieved in the same amount of time. And Ahsoka was not a hit. And then they add what I can only imagine is like adding insult to injury. The Acolyte still represents Disney's biggest series premiere of 2024, however. Yeah, because their only other series, Echo, did even worse. So, yeah. Thoughts on that script?
Well, I mean, just shows that the brand's diminishing. Yeah, that's all I can really say is that Star Wars brand is diminishing, especially on the small screen. Nobody trusts it anymore. Why should they?
Yeah, and they're pretty much at the same spot they were with everything else, because Valiant and I were going over these numbers last night, and yeah, it did about half as good as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Because Obi-Wan Kenobi is really the only one besides The Mandalorian that you can say they actually generated some decent numbers for. Like the rest of them are a lot of hedging and bullshit behind it and whatnot. And then we know Andor was the one that had, nobody watched it, like period. Like not even Pedro, or not Pedro, what the hell's his name that's in the show? But anyway, I fucked that joke up. Who gives a shit? Point is, anyway, Diego Luna, that's who's in it. Yeah. Even Diego Luna's mom didn't watch it. That was what I was going to say. But anyway, yeah, we're not surprised at all by this. They're done. They, if anything, the only reason it did this good, I would argue, is just because of pure curiosity factor and YouTubers and people wanting to trash on this thing. Because I've even seen some of the shills who can't make excuses for some of this shit. It's almost like they're reaching Velma levels with this thing.
Yeah. The writing is so bad. It's embarrassing. So far. I'm sure episode 3 will change things around.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. But anyway, remember, we were always told just how amazing a writer Leslie Headland was, and we should be so excited because of Headland and what a genius ingenue writer she was. Where did that go?
Well, she is better than Dave Filoni because out of all of these Star Wars that Dave Filoni has had a significant hand in, this Acolyte is the first one that's actually not about Star Wars. It's actually about a murder mystery, and I have to give it props for that. It's terribly written, but it's better written than Dave Filoni.
I agree.
And that's where you're going to, I said it before, she has the better pedigree of a lot of the writers that have worked on Star Wars in the last few years on the Disney Plus side of things, excluding, of course, Jon Favreau. But I mean, that again, you're comparing garbage to slightly used trash. It's an upgrade, but not by much.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like much of an upgrade.
No, but I will say this. It is the first, Star Wars show that's not about the subject of Star Wars so far. It's literally, why is this person killing these Jedi? It's a procedural.
Yeah.
It's not a
but they tell us within the first 2 shows.
Yeah, they give us all the information right up front. It's like, okay.
Stupid.
Yeah, it is. It's dumb. Yeah. But
if you're gonna have fun with a mystery, then have fun with a mystery. I mean, for crying out loud.
Great stages to it where things get unraveled with every episode as it goes. Don't tip your hand so much. I mean, Leslie Headland, for a lesbian, she does not know how to do foreplay well.
Oh.
And you think.
Well, and from that, I don't know if there's anything more to say on the Acolyte for now. Because there's another Lucasfilm story I want to get to before we lose script here. And before too long.
The only thing I want to mention is that, and I've got it in my most recent review, is that there's a segment between Saul, why they have this Jewish Jedi, I have no idea, who looks like a Korean, and with Osha, and there's a whole sequence about her tattoo, and I'm thinking, well, Leslie Headland has a tattoo. She probably had this argument with her folks, and this was the deep emotional moment between Saul and Osha about him caring, not caring about the tattoo. Like, of all the things to talk about, I thought that's an insert. That had to be an insert. And I'm sure the writers' room must have been in tears as Leslie Headland was able to recount her childhood trauma with her parents and sticking it into the show.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm.
Master Saul goes up and goes, "Oh, look at that." So what's bothering you?
Blame Kathy.
Oh, the tattoo is no, it's not bothering me. Don't worry. No, it's not bothering me.
Honey, it's not really the tattoo
react.
that's bothering me. It's the fact that you're a lesbian. No, just kidding.
Right.
And I'll never have grandchildren. No, just kidding. Anyway, that being said, all kidding aside, another bit of Lucasfilm news we got today was that we knew there was an Indiana Jones game coming, but we finally got a trailer, and boy, was it a trailer! 5 minutes. And Andre, you hinted a little bit about the trailer, like you said, this is the story we probably should have gotten instead of whatever the hell that thing was at Dial of
Yeah,
Destiny.
this is true. Yeah,
but I'm sitting here
carry on.
watching it, and there's one thing that stuck out to me that really bothered me. And you guys can talk about it left and right. I'm not a gamer, so I only have like one thing to say. But here we go, modern haircut bitch in the show, because there ain't nobody who had their hair cut like that in the 1940s. Give me a break. They had short hair, but it wasn't like that. Anyway, so yeah, other than that, this doesn't look too shabby, I guess. But yeah, I have that same feeling she just had. And yeah, I don't know. So what did you guys think of this trailer?
I haven't seen
I'm
it.
not a gamer. So
you guys
you
can
haven't
talk
seen
about
it.
This is just cinematics. This isn't a trailer.
Yeah, it's not
I'd
even
rather
really
see
a
gameplay
trailer.
than cinematics. So
There's some gameplay towards the very end of it. Beyond that, these
Yeah.
are just cinematics and cutscenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I'm not playing a game for cinematics. I'm playing a game for the game. So if you're not going to show me game footage, I'm not interested.
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
There's some game footage in the last 20 seconds or so. So has anyone else seen anything else about this game, or is it
this
just
the one made by Ubisoft?
Bethesda and
Bethesda's doing this. Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, there was a little bit of gameplay at the end, but yeah, it was mostly just footage for the cutscenes.
What I will say about this game, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and when we first learned about this this project, we all had a right good chuckle at the title, because you all know what it sounds like: Indiana Jones and the Great Big Circle. But I had no idea what that circle referred to. This is actually revealed in this cinematic, which is basically that all of these truly historic sites on Earth, Stonehenge and the pyramids and Machu Picchu, stuff like that, they are actually in one great big perfect circle. So you could go like in a satellite orbit over all of them in one flyover, because they're inside of a perfect circle. This is something that that I only learned of a few years ago myself, and this is actually quite accurate, and that's a very cool premise for an Indiana Jones movie. Not necessarily a good title. I mean, they'd have to rewrite that, because the title is right up there with the Dial of Destiny. But the premise is far more interesting, and I kind of wish, having seen this cinematic, that they had gone with something like this for the movie instead of what we got in the movie, because this cinematic looks like a better Indiana Jones movie than did the Dial of Destiny, which of course doesn't say much, but it looks significantly much better. So I was actually pleasantly surprised by this cinematic. That doesn't mean much, or doesn't say much about the gameplay. Way too early to say about that. And this character, yeah, okay, she has a very modern day haircut, but beyond that, what's she gonna do in the story? Probably nothing good, because this is made under the Xbox inclusion rules. So it's going to be wokeified by those alone. And we do not yet know in exactly which ways, or maybe some do, but I certainly don't. But just on this first look, there's very little here to trash. I mean, this looks pleasantly positive, I would say, based on this early cinematic. But I don't trust them at this point in time. I do not trust AAA gaming. I do not trust Xbox as far as I can throw them, including the console. So yeah, I'm just waiting to find out how they screwed this up and how they wokified it and how they made it unplayable. So bet that we'll find that out sooner rather than later. But at first glance, this seemed pretty okay.
Well, traditionally, games based on movies were always laughably bad. None of us in the gaming community ever trusted any game based on a movie.
It's actually funny because the best Indiana Jones games, at least in the generation of consoles that I played, were the games that were kind of like rip-offs of Indiana Jones, but not Indiana Jones himself. Like, for instance, Quackshot, starring Donald Duck. That's a fantastic Indiana Jones game. I'm not even joking.
No, I know you're not.
It's a fantastic Indiana Jones game.
Wow. Never heard of it.
Which is funny considering how Scrooge McDuck kind of somewhat in a roundabout way some inspiration
to begin with, yeah.
But yeah, no, I hope for the fans the game is fun. I ain't got nothing to say about it. I don't know if anybody else does on that note.
But, I have nothing to say. I won't be playing it.
Yeah, and I know we're losing guys here, so yeah.
Yeah, which you are also unfortunately losing here soon. Any final thoughts on this?
Nope.
All right, so let's get back into some super chats here. Andre, you want to double check through the chats real quick, make sure there ain't any for Paul or...
Yes, I'll do that.
While I do this one, Chaos Sonic sends in 10 and says, Tom, to me, Miles only worked in his own universe separate from Spider-Man since he had freedom to replace Peter to a fault, as technically Miles was to pander to Obama fans, and I'm not kidding. Oh yeah, I know, and this is exactly one of the reasons why I don't like him, why I generally don't like these kind of characters. And I'm just of the mindset that there's no real need or reason for them unless you're telling some kind of like one and done side story or Elseworld story or something like that. Like, yeah, you can get away with a Batman Beyond kind of story once in a while, but to me, it's like, what's the point? They're comic book characters. They don't need to age. Just keep telling the stories.
Miles only exists because I can't remember which studio was afraid they weren't going to be able to hold on to the real Spider-Man.
Partially, yes, but also to pander.
Well, I mean, you're going to do both at the same time. I mean, absolutely. Yeah.
Then we got the one, the only Rod Thunderheart, who sends in a Canadian toonie. It's a script. Your copy of my book is headed your way.
Awesome. Thank you, Rod. Looking forward to that.
Just be sure to duck.
Yes. Speaking of which, I'm going to have to duck out right now, but thank you guys for having me on today. And I will see you guys next time, and stick around for the rest of the show, everybody. Lots of super chats to get through, and great conversation. So take care, gentlemen. Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Thanks for joining.
All right. Any specific ones for Paul?
No specific ones for Paul. I just want to share this one thing with him.
Sure.
I'm just going to get it up on screen here.
I love sharing. It's always nice to share.
Sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring.
Do you believe?
There we go. Oh, there's the best Indiana Jones game ever made.
I am keeping me money.
Yes, this is actually, it's very easy, but it's actually a very cool game in design, in score, in overall execution. Disney's animators worked on it and everything. So yeah, it's very child friendly, very
good kids game.
This is a good Indiana Jones game. It has all of the Indiana Jones tropes are in this one.
Well, and modern Disney doesn't like any of their old characters. We're never going to see a Donald Duck of anything, or a Pluto or Goofy, because I guess they're considered part of a bygone era. But this looks great.
It is great.
That cover looks great.
And the gameplay is fantastic too. It's really cool. Like it's the quintessential Donald and Disney and Indiana Jones all at the same time.
And I can totally see that.
Yeah. And we have one super chat for you on the way out the door. The Red Dawn Batman says for $5 Canadian. So, countryman of yours. Although I would agree with Paul, movie games basically suck, but the Lord of the Rings video games for 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's great. Every once in a while, you'll get a good version of the game. I didn't even mind playing the Guardians of the Galaxy video game. It was a bit rinse and repeaty, but I mean, it was a good waste of time. It was fun.
Oh crap! Did we miss Donald Duck's birthday?
Wow!
I have to check. That should have been retrospective right there. Crap! Good thing I brought it up.
Yeah. Not only is Disney not interested in Walt, they've retired Tinker Bell.
She was very problematic.
I mean, you just have to take a look at the people who are making these pronouncements, these DEI people. They all seem to be cut from the same cloth, like apart from not having any sense of humor, mean, nasty people. And yeah, I mean, you could think of Disney's collection of cartoon characters as being old, but I don't see why, as a business person, you wouldn't find a way to keep using them, because there's always going to be some kind of nostalgia, some niche that they're going to fill, and they might get re-energized just by using them. I don't understand Disney not continually cranking out stuff with their IP that they have available to them.
And their classic shorts are better than 90% of anything coming out today.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that's all that we had for you, Paul, at least at first glance.
A fine Monday.
So yeah, thanks for joining us today.
That's nice to be joined.
That's what she said.
Yeah. So I'll leave you to your stuff. I've got a brand new Acolyte video where I talk about just exactly why specifically the writing is so bad in episode 2. And I got to the point where after I hit the 21-minute mark, I just gave up. I said, no, I can't. I just can't go on. That's it. I'm done. I'm fried. I think I've made my point. So yeah.
I look forward to your episode 3 review, which is just
2 days
no.
away. Yeah, people are telling me I need to do that now.
2 more days.
No, well, tomorrow night, yeah. It's Tuesday, isn't it?
Well, I don't know exactly when it drops, but I know it drops Tuesday. On the 12th.
At 9.
I don't
know.
Before you do go, Paul, do you know anything about the game Perfect Dark?
No.
Okay, well.
Nope.
Then
I know nothing about it.
Go.
Sorry, you can let me go. Bye, everyone. Thank you for having me, as always.
Your shirt's not as...
No, it isn't as loud because it's kind of chilly today in Canada, and so I dressed long shirt. I got to get some nice bright long shirt ones. These are old.
Say something nice about your shirt.
It's brown.
It's brown.
Bye, everyone.
Take care. It's a brown shirt. Oh no. Patrick Robinson sends in $9.99 and says, I don't know about anyone else, but the new Perfect Dark looked pretty good, and Indy looked much better this time. I do not care about Doom Dark Ages, and I'm saying this as a huge fan of the 93 game. Yeah, I wish I knew. I don't know much about Perfect Dark, so I can't comment on that. Obviously, I'm not the gamer here, but Andre, I mean, I know a lot of these are not on the Sega Mega Drive, but yeah, anything to say about these?
I'm not too familiar with Perfect Dark, so I'm afraid I cannot comment on it. Sorry about that.
But thank you for the support, and we appreciate your opinion. DZ is here and sends in €5. Says, hello, guys. Mel Gibson next directed movie is coming in October, Flight Risk. What about Christ 2? Has it been filmed already or not? Well, it's funny you asked, DZ, because I was looking that up last week or doing a little research on it, however you want to put it. And from the best that I can find, yeah, he's shooting Passion of the Christ, or just finishing it up. And actually, it's become such a big thing that it sounds like he might be splitting it up into part 2 and 3 at the same time. So Yeah, and then fingers crossed he might get to Lethal Weapon 5 before long, but we'll see. But yeah, as I heard, it's either filming or finished at this point.
Huh. All right, well, there you go. Thanks for that update.
Yeah.
And thanks for the super chat.
Indeed. AF Watcher 88 sends in $1.99 and says, how much would Superman need to succeed? Well, have we got a budget yet on it? I think it was 100 and... What was it?
We have a budget of what they have said in public.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think their budget was like 120 or whatever it was, so it wasn't too bad, but...
Yeah, but then it's a matter of what they're actually going to spend by the time all is said and done. I think that internally they are hoping for it to do 1 billion, because that appears to be the desired threshold for all of these DC movies, for which you can thank Christopher Nolan and, ironically, the first Aquaman, all of which actually did that 1 billion, although nothing else has made it.
Don't forget Joker.
And Joker, of course, Joker. So I think that their internal projection and success criteria is 1 billion. And then they'll probably be satisfied if it comes in over 800, and anything less than that, that's deep trouble territory. That would be my estimation, because at that point it's performing like the Batman and Man of Steel, and that just ain't good enough.
Yep, exactly what you just said. Packing Proton sends in 5 and says, would you rather have John Lasseter TMNT movie or Illumination TMNT movie? Paramount sale. Trying to decide who would be better owning it. Well, it could even end up in Warner Brothers' lap. That's another possibility. So as far as those that you gave me there, Illumination. I think Lasseter could have fun with it, but I think he does better with stuff that he creates on his own. And I don't think he'd have the same passion for a Ninja Turtle project that he would for even a Cars movie or something like that. Because that's his thing, right? If that makes sense. But yeah, there's a slight possibility with the way Valiant and I were talking about things. If, say, Warner Brothers and Sony were to go in together on this deal, and Sony were to take the studio side of things and Warner Brothers were to take the television side of things, if that television side of things includes things like Nickelodeon, that would include things like Ninja Turtles. It could also even include Star Trek. So there is a scenario here, and again, this is just speculation, so don't go running with this like it's some kind of report. There's a scenario here where Warner Brothers could even end up with some of these properties that Paramount has, like Ninja Turtles, and it would also clean up the South Park mess and a few other things, even Beavis and Butthead. So there you go. They're half of Beavis and Butthead. So if they get into that part of the deal, that's could be a possibility. But yeah, as far as this goes, that's my answer. I don't know if Andre wants to chime in on that. He's not as much of a turtle fan, but
I like turtles.
I agree with your argumentation. I actually would not want John Lasseter to do a Turtles movie, because as much as I love him and his style, it is wrong for Turtles. He would be the wrong fit for it. And just because of that one, I would go with Illumination, because John Lasseter is absolutely wrong. Illumination, there at least you have a chance that they might assign the right person, and Lasseter for
Mario
Turtles.
Brothers is my example.
Exactly. It's like the same thing. I like John Lasseter. I wouldn't want him to do Conan. Again, he's the wrong person for it.
Now, Lasseter would make a movie that was 10 times better than Mutant Mayhem, though. I'll give you that much back. But I just don't think he'd have the same passion for it. That's all. And then Chaos Sonic 1 says, personally, I think it's too late. But to me, with superhero movies, it's just not fun anymore. That's a big problem of it, too. And you know, and Script is right. They will have their resurgence at some point. There's going to be the exceptions, but
it may be too late for now. It may be too late for this generation that's ruling right now, but it can get back to where it is in the future, but not in the...
We saw the birth, but I don't think we saw the death.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I think that's a poetic way of putting it. But we have not yet seen its death. Roger Sam sends in 2 and says, gotta boycott Deadpool. That will be heard. I haven't heard too much about people wanting to boycott Deadpool, but if you want to boycott Deadpool, you have that right.
Yeah, but I would ask, what do you hope to achieve with that? Think about it. Why would you want to boycott Deadpool? What are you objecting to with it? Are you objecting to Marvel doing an R-rated movie? Are you objecting to them bringing back male leads? Are you objecting to more raunchy humor? Because by boycotting Deadpool, that's what you are. That's what you're boycotting. If you think you are boycotting the direction of the MCU, you are wrong, and it will not be interpreted that way. If you boycott Deadpool, the only signal that Hollywood will take from that is, boy, I guess that the audience don't want R-rated movies. They don't want to see Hugh Jackman. They don't want Ryan Reynolds. Well, let's go back to girl power then. That is what will be heard with a Deadpool boycott and nothing else. If anything, if you are against the MCU, you actually should go and support Deadpool. Because if Deadpool scores through the roof when everything else flops, that's the kind of data point that it will be very, very difficult for Disney to ignore. If
Let's
Deadpool
make Kevin
walks alongside everything else, it's just like saying, well, this is dead now. Screw it. We don't have to try anymore. We either just continue along the MCU or just give it up altogether. So I'm not sure that boycotting Deadpool is going to achieve what you want it to achieve.
And let's just put it this way. You can also kind of stick it to Feige by going to see this movie because he did not think it was a good idea to bring Hugh Jackman back. And I'm not sure what his reasoning for that was. He probably wanted to insert X-23, but take that as you will. This is sending a signal. I agree with Andre 100%. Again, you have the right to boycott, but I think that if you want to send, and they're actually, if the rumors that we're hearing are true, that's going to send them the right signal that, oh yeah, this is what we want to see. You know, like in our superhero movies. So, and I hope the movie's good because I don't want to send the wrong signal by making a bad movie popular.
No, because that's the thing. When you want to send a signal, you have to make sure that you send the right one, and you don't send the right signal by boycotting the one movie they make, which is actually something along the lines of what you probably should be wanting. Then that's not the movie you boycott. That's the movie you support to give them that data point. That's the movie you actually want to cross 1 billion, assuming that it is the movie that it's in the trailers. If it's another woke fest and the trailers lie to us, of course, then all bets are off. But if the trailers in any way are indicative of the final movie, then actually you should bring your friends and go and help it reach that 1 billion and give Disney that very powerful data point. That is what will be heard.
Especially right after the Monkey movie, because I mean, I still stand by that there's not a lot of woke shit in that movie at all. And in fact, it has a lot of traditional kind of storytelling in it. And if anything, as you know, cookie cutter as some of the movie is, it at least sends a signal that this is more like what we want, not this other stuff that you're trying to do. And I think Bad Boys will also send that signal this weekend, or after this weekend, I mean.
Yeah.
And then we got Packing Protons with $5. It says, at this point, I'd love a Mr. Picklick. I can't always say that, but Mr. Picklick movie. Go with an established Superman, something totally different. Yeah, you could have some fun with that, especially if you had like Jim Carrey or something like that doing it.
Well, to me, that sounds more like a Christmas special or something. But
exactly, yeah. And James Gunn would have some fun with that. Exactly. Yeah.
I wouldn't devote the whole movie to that.
No.
But a Christmas special, hell yeah. I mean, that was one of the best episodes of the animated series, but only because it stood out from all of the other episodes and it was a contrast to them. If it only had been that and the rest of the animated series didn't exist, it wouldn't have been nearly as fun. So yeah, it only works because it stands out against everything else. So you need everything else. So my book, that's a Christmas special, but it's a Christmas special I'd love to see.
Yeah, I think it would be fun. C-Man sends in 5, says boycotting Marvel and anything Disney, as long as the same people are still in place, giving them no money doesn't matter if the movie is good.
And
And
that's
again,
fair.
that's your point. You know, your prerogative if you want to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's completely fair, because then you have checked out completely. But at that point, you no longer have a vote. You're just churn at that point. And Chaos Sonic says for $5, Captain America is doomed, and if they bring in Peggy Cap, then it shows they haven't changed or learned their lesson. Yeah, I think this is a reference to, I believe it was Overload DVD, our good friend Doomcock's most recent rumor, which I believe was that one of the changes they're doing right now is that they're walking back on Anthony Mackie as Captain America, and they're going to bring in Peggy Carter as Captain America instead, and they're just retiring America from the title. So she's just now kind of like the captain, or is going to be by the end. I do not know the veracity of it. But we've been saying all along, this entire movie should be scrapped. No good can come.
She's already an agent. Like, this is the thing. Why?
But in the What If series, she is Captain America or Captain Britain or something like that. And it would be so stunning and brave to have that on the big screen as well, in addition to what they already had in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. If they're thinking about doing that, then it's just going to make the movie even worse. And again, this movie shouldn't be released. They should just take a tax write-off on it, because it can only erode all of the goodwill that Deadpool is going to create. Yeah.
We got Mario Trillo, who sends in 10, says, don't care about anything Will Smith. Dude spent 10 years trying to make a boring son a star, and when that failed, he went full woke. He's a weak snake, and I'll never see any of his BS. Well, then that's
fair.
Your prerogative.
Absolutely. Go for it.
And Grimzilla says with 5, Marvel knows they screwed up, but do they know how and why they screwed up? Those are the big questions they need answering, especially with Feige. Yeah, I agree, Grimzilla, and that's what we're going to have to wait and see. Yeah.
And basically what we're seeing here, now when they have Terry Matalas, which is fantastic, and they waste him on a fucking Vision series, another follow-up to WandaVision, going back to that, well, that tells me that, no, they don't understand. They haven't learned anything, and that makes me a whole lot less optimistic for the MCU.
Well, I mean, they're making one step at least, like, because I know Feige had admitted that, yeah, like they need to get some more creative people in there. Like, yeah, maybe hiring people who have only made documentaries is not the best idea.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like,
but
yeah,
that's a step.
But that's
in
only
the right
one.
direction.
Yeah, that's only one step. Exactly. You got a lot more steps to go here, buddy.
Because what they need to do is they have to stop letting Kevin Feige design this, because WandaVision was his baby. That's all his idea. And it's ruined the MCU, and he keeps on ruining it. So the first step is getting good people. But the second is now going away from Kevin Feige's vision and overall story structure that just isn't working and that isn't clicking, and have these creatives come up with something better than he is capable of coming up with himself. That's a real challenge. That's step 2. So far, we've only seen step 1, and that's not enough.
Yeah. Well, we got some more super chats here, and thank you so much, guys, for the support. We got Kareen in the house. How you been? It says, Bad Boys Ride or Die was funny. Love it. Well, I'm glad to hear you enjoyed it.
I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, Malice Flair sends in, which is this one? This is the...
That's the Filipino one.
Filipino.
Or Thai Butt. May have been Thai Butt. I don't recall that.
Yeah. But thank you, Malice, and says introduced Iceman so you can have the Falcon and the Snowman. Yeah, could do that. I mean, again, I know we've said it a million times over, but it's like, I don't get it. Like, the obvious choice is sitting right in front of your face, right? You had this entire redemption arc for Bucky, right? He has super strength like Captain America did. He even has an arm that would look really cool whipping that shield. Like, how much more do you need? Like,
well, it's not inclusive enough, Tom. And that's all there's like. It's all trumped by inclusivity.
You're right. I know it's a rhetorical question, but it's like, what the? Just
They did have to switch their brains off to fix it though. So yeah.
But I mean, it's the most obvious choice right in front of your face, and I don't think anybody would have batted an eye because it makes sense logically, story wise. Because he isn't Captain America; he's the Winter Soldier still, but he's the only one who could carry that mantle in quotations, and I'm doing air quotes. I know. In that sense, like, but he's still Bucky. He's still the Winter Soldier. He's not Captain America. He has the same powers. He can utilize that. He can carry on that. He's his best friend. He's the only one who really knows him. Let's be real. I mean, anyway, fucking just, you guys are all right earlier. That's why I couldn't really say much to add to it or subtract. Because, yeah. And we got Rod Thunderheart, who's become a member, or probably changed his level, but thank you for that, Rod. And then we got Midnight Sun, who sends in Canadian $6.99 and says, if they were to retcon Star Wars, as Andre suggested, where should they start? Disney Star Wars has extended to various points in canon. Oh, if let's say, like, completely devil's advocate, if tomorrow they were to go, like, we're selling Star Wars, and I just happen to have win the biggest lottery in the world and have enough money to buy Star Wars, I erase everything up to the prequels. And I might even think about doing a George Lucas to the prequels just to piss him off. But that's just a personal thing. But no, like, at that point, that's really all you can do. And nothing that came after the prequels, even some of the Clone Wars stuff is kind of, doesn't it kind of go again? Anything that I guess that isn't EU generated or that ties in with anything, then it's gone. And then you just kind of start rebuilding from there. Andre, I don't know what you would do, but like this thing is so burnt that I don't know if you can resuscitate it.
You know what I would do? I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of flack from this from fans of the animated series, but I would make it real simple. I think they kind of like had the right idea with what they did when they said nothing is canon now. The entire EU is now Legends. I mean, honestly, it wasn't canon to anything that happened in the big screen in the first place. The big screen movies were canon to what happened in the comics, the books, and the animated series, but not the other way around. So I would basically just continue that and just say, look, okay, the Disney thing is an era of the past. Everything that Disney did is now Legends, along with the rest of Legends. The only thing that's canon here are the 6 movies. It's the prequel trilogy, and it's the original trilogy. And everything else as of this moment is uncharted. If it's not on the big screen, it's not canon. And then what I would do is I would do a new sequel trilogy right away, and I would base it on Heir of the Empire. I mean, part of me wants to keep the Mandalorian, but the Mandalorian was already ruined in season 3.
This is the same thing I argue with DC. No, you got to scorch it.
The exact same thing here. You got to scorch everything. You got to scorch everything apart from the original trilogy and prequel trilogy, and then you use the absolute best of Legends, the absolute best of the comics, the absolute best of the books, the absolute best of Filoni's animated series, the stuff that really resonates with the fans. You retell that, but you do it in live action, in episodic movies. Then you really can't go wrong if you have these storytellers that just wants to push the universe and the storytelling there without any further agendas. And I think that's how you win the fans back. I mean, I'm sure if you were to announce that, people would be on board with it right away. We're going to have Thrawn on the big screen now. People would. Well,
I mean, even Star Wars was a bit too big for George to even keep contained. You know what I mean? So, like, I agree with you. Like, you kind of basically scorch everything up to past, to the past, where even if it was a show like Clone Wars, and that's where I said even that might be sacrificable. I agree with you. The best way to approach this is like they used to approach things. Anything that happens on TV doesn't really matter. That's why it has to be kept in its own little bubble. You can do whatever the hell you want, and it doesn't matter if something happens there. It's not going to affect the movies. The movies are the only thing that are actually canon, right? Because just like back in the day, we had the Ewok movies, the animated series, the Droid series. none of those really line up with certain things once you get so, bogged down in all this other EU stuff, right? Like, so, in fact, the Droid series is completely wrong if you go by the prequels. Like, even George went against his own things sometimes.
Exactly.
So at that point, like, I agree with you, Andre. In a way, you have to kind of keep this separation of this idea that, that's maybe where the Marvel problem seeps in here a little bit too much, and they're doing that with Star Wars now. Because even Star Trek kind of knew you had to kind of keep things a little separate. Like, they knew that the movies would happen, but like they didn't really, as far as my recollection, they didn't really address the movies in the series at all ever, right? Like, it just was their own kind of thing. But anyway, somebody who has a thing to say about this probably, because he is a Star Wars fan, or at least was, the Mexican Iron Man himself.
F Star Wars.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah, and I was the
What
guy
would you
who
do, though?
2 years ago got in. I would do everything that Andre said, but I don't even care anymore. 2 years ago, I was the guy that would fight with you, Tom, on the live stream about Star Wars and fixing Star Wars and blah blah. Now I just don't care. I'm going to die without ever seeing good Star Wars again, and the sooner I realize it, the better I'll be.
Star Wars right now is a house that has had a house fire, 12 vagrants living in it, and the foundation is questionable. Is it fixable? Possibly. I'm not going to sit here and say it's like dead, because the fact that we're still talking about it right now goes to show that it's not dead, right? So like let's kind of really put this into perspective here. But it is a house that needs so much fixing. It's like, is it worth more, or is it cheaper to just knock the sumbitch down and start again from scratch? Or do you try to sink as much as it's going to take into this project to rebuild it, right? Like, because that's where we're at right now. And unless you're somebody who can buy this out wholesale from Disney, I don't think that they're ever going to be able to get out from underneath this. Star Trek, on the other hand, is the one thing where it's like, that's a better example of this, because they have an opportunity with the sale to get rid of all this fucking Kurtzman shit, right? And the beauty of a lot of that stuff is it doesn't even really tie in that well with all the other stuff. So that's something you can wash away and nobody's going to notice. Like, Picard is the only thing that's kind of the hanger on, but at least it left on a high note, right? For most people. So I don't know. I don't think Star Wars is fixable comparatively to something like Star Trek, but I'm not going to sit here and burn the house down before evaluating things. What do you guys say to that kind of a assessment of the situation?
I agree, but I still don't care. I'm traumatized. I'm traumatized.
Yeah.
I'm traumatized. I'm under trauma.
What'd you say,
and
Andre?
unlike you, Tom, Doomcock's making me watch all this crap. So I'm the trauma's ongoing. Like, I'm watching.
I'm trying to avoid it myself.
I'm watching I'm watching the closed caption tapes of my ex cheating on me left and right, and I'm like watching them now weekly, and that's what it feels like, to use your analogy. I'm like, it wasn't just that the cops are like, guess what? We found closed caption footage of what she did. Wait, what?
You mean closed circuit TV? But yeah.
Yeah, and now I'm watching it happen over and over again. And now the further I go, then I find out it's my cousin. And then I find out, like, I don't know.
And then she did some weird shit to your toothbrush.
Yeah, and the stuff she said no to me, she's saying yes to him.
Exactly. No. You can't be having that. But no, I think we should move on from there. Abdulio is here and sends in $2 and asks, Andre, did you see Gojira -1 now that it's everywhere? He did.
I did see it, and I enjoyed it tremendously. I see the hype. I really wish that I had the opportunity to see it on the big screen. I was almost going to see it with our good friend Mr. H Reviews, take a trip over to London and see it with him. But sadly, scheduling got in the way, so I couldn't do it. But I did get to see it with another very good friend here. So I had a great experience watching it. Yeah. I enjoyed it tremendously. To me, it is the second best Godzilla movie. I understand perfectly why it is many people's favorite Godzilla movie. It's just, to me, I appreciated the subtext and the Fukushima allegories in Shin Gojira so much that as of right now, still is my favorite Godzilla movie. But in time, maybe it'll flip. Maybe it'll flip.
The beauty is that they're two separate universes, so it's not like they're conflicting with each other,
Nope,
right?
exactly. So, yeah, no.
And that's the beauty of that.
I mean, the Godzilla multiverse, that's one hell of a multiverse.
Right? And that's where I keep, bumping heads with people who are all like, oh, well, it's not Godzilla -1. It's like, it doesn't have to be. That's what, if every one of the Godzilla movies was Godzilla -1, Godzilla -1 wouldn't be the movie that we're talking about right now. It'd just be another Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
Right. And at the same time, we have the legendary universe going on, which to me is amazing for the kids because that's bringing a whole new generation in. And as a Godzilla fan, we have never had this much Godzilla content at once. So I don't see and none of it's that bad. I mean, yes, one may be better than the other or higher quality of the other, but I like that meme that I show of Tiger Woods and that other guy. It's like both can coexist and you can appreciate both for what they are, right? Like I love the cheesy goofiness of the legendary films, but I also love Godzilla -1. But Godzilla -1 is a movie that I'll hold up and say, now this is the kind of movie that should have got nominated for Best Picture. Right. And they didn't, and they ignored it. But the beauty of it is we have we have that to use as a what's the word I'm looking for now? I just forgot it. Basically, whenever we're talking about movies, like a movie costs $200 million to make, now I can go, that's 20 Godzilla -1s.
Exactly. Let's move on here. Packing Proton says for $5. The Acolyte is a Sol Kennedy brainchild. Does she survive this? Unfortunately. So, yes. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Because she can put the blame on who.
Edland has already been set up. And Rob Thunderheart sent us $5 Canadian. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate the support. And Dark Hero fan says for $2 is the chunky one called McJedi.
Yes, and he's got Jedi-abetes as well.
Yeah, he does probably.
You guys.
Bucky Cat says for $5, local theater warehouse is leveraging classical movies, playing bridge on the River Kwai next week after Lord of the Rings. Oh wow, awesome!
Nice.
You have to make sure to go see that. I would have gone if I had that opportunity.
Right.
And Thunderstorm says for $4.99. Why is the animated Star Wars better written than live action?
Well, I don't know about the modern animated stuff, but the old animated stuff was written by the story group underneath supervision of like Lucas and such, right? So like, I mean, that at least still had its pedigree. It still had people who cared about the lore, and there was people who actually paid attention to where they didn't muss up canon so much and whatnot. Because I do know like that was one big deal that when they did start doing the Clone Wars show, for instance, as an example, that was a big deal. But now the modern stuff, I haven't seen any of the modern stuff. But I do know that one project they did where it was like multiple animators. Wasn't that something they shopped out to like a bunch of foreign and they wanted their vision on it anyway? So like the Visions thing, that's what it was. Yeah. Other than that, I can't speak to any of the modern stuff, but it's probably just because you have a lot of the same people from the old regime still working on a lot of the like Bad Batch and whatnot, I would imagine. I don't know for sure though. Mikey, do you know anything about this or?
No.
That'd be my guess at this point, but I was never a big fan of the animated stuff back then, but I can understand now how it's aged better than the modern stuff for sure. Andre, anything to add to that? I guess not. He probably had to step away anyway. And then this one is 40. I believe this is the Indian rupees, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but E sends in that and says, check out Cocky 2898 ad trailer. Well, if it's an anime, they are very touchy, so we probably can't watch it here, but let me see what pops up when I put that in. Khaki 28. All right. AD. Is it a video game? Or is it a movie or something? Okay. Yeah, it looks like a movie. It's a Hindi movie. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to take the chance of showing it on the stream, but I will share it with everybody in the chat if they want to check that out. So there you go.
Yeah, we'll check it out behind the scenes here.
There you go. Yep. And moving on, we've got also one from Chaos Sonic, another one who sends in 5 and says, Bucky Cap would be great storyline if it wasn't for the message. Also, that is the thing. The movies, directors, and show choose not to include fans. Well, and look, I mean, I know part of it is, yes, at a point, the fans' opinions matter, but also I feel like as a creative, you need to be able to shut some of that off and be able to work in your own space in the moment, and then maybe afterwards be able to reflect with fans. And I think that's a problem as far as like what it's kind of weird because they're at a point where they're in touch with the fans more than they ever been able to before with social media, but they're out of touch with what the fans want. And it's a lot of it because of the messaging and the mentality and the woke ideology or religion or whatever you want to call it at this point. And that's the way they treat it, right? So it's like, you know, like we've talked before about how I've never seen so much cognitive dissonance in my life. You know, it's like everybody in Hollywood is the Principal Skinner meme. It's like, is it me who's out of touch? No, the children are wrong. You know, like that's everybody in Hollywood right now. I mean, I don't know if there's a better way to put that. And don't sound like anybody disagrees. So Thunderstorm also sends in another $4.99 and says, any chance Thunderbolts could be a good movie? Oh, it could be. Is it really anything? Look, I mean,
to answer it really quickly, there's always a chance, but I wouldn't put money on it.
Right. Like, I mean, it's like if you had this, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel of ideas here when you have so many other things you could be doing, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It's not just so much the idea. The idea is fine. The problem is that these are B-list or D-list characters that have already been tried with the public and none of them clicked.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Yeah. Like, you understand what I'm saying more than how I'm saying it. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. SFX F314 Sabertooth Raptor sends in $3, says Mexican Iron Man versus Elf. Greater than Disney Star Wars.
That would be greater than Disney Star Wars, actually.
I have a lightsaber. I have a piece of shit Alf doll in the corner. That's a piece of shit. No, there's
and he has a lightsaber.
The lightsaber is cute.
Yeah,
and I definitely
he does have a lightsaber.
I can definitely do a better lightsaber fight than those morons on the Acolyte. Freaking idiots.
That's true.
You and Elf both. And then we got Marksman 117B who says Star Wars is a crack den. Thank you for the $1.99. The remain fans addicts. Yeah, the remaining fans, and bless them. I mean, they're hanging in there. Because I can't believe there's that many new fans.
Well, there aren't. The numbers bear that.
Yeah, I know. It was a joke.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just mainly those hangers on.
Oops. And then Doll Life Dan says for $5, no disrespect to Quackshot, but the DOS classic Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis is the best Indiana Jones game and the 4th best indie story. Yeah. Why is it that the video games do Indiana Jones better than the movies? Fine, you know what? I'll grant you that.
Paul made that point.
That's better than Quackshot. But again, that also should have been a movie.
Well, I mean, really, Pitfall is kind of one of the original games to show you that you could do this concept works in a video game. I mean, Lara Croft is a great example of how this concept can work. I mean, even certain games like you could almost kind of trace back the idea of any of these like clue-driven games to like that type of genre. You know what I mean? Because that's what people want when they play these Indiana Jones games. They want a good story. They want some action. And they want to have to solve a few little puzzles and stuff like Indy does, right? Well, that's all these games, isn't it? That we just talked about. So, like, yeah, like Paul said earlier, a lot of these other games are doing it better than Indy in some cases, and you're right. Like, and I know a lot of the classic indie games are 10 times better than some of the newer ones. Unfortunately, you'd think now would be the golden age of them, but no.
I think so.
We'll have to see. We'll see how this one turns out, but Packing Proton says, I would redo the prequel trilogy with better acting. Yeah, right. Oh, shit. I would animate the Heir to the Empire and cherry pick the best of the EU books and comics X-Wing books. Well, the beauty is we're getting to a point with deep fakes and stuff that you wouldn't even almost have to do it as a quote-unquote animated film. But yeah, no, you're not wrong. Connor Dorian says with $10, did you see that Bill Skarsgård is returning as Pennywise? I did. in the prequel TV series and Welcome to Derry, which is coming out next year on streaming service Max. Yeah, I wish I was a little bit more excited for it, but I was just not a fan of the new It films, and mostly because of his portrayal of the character. And I know that's not all his choice, but yeah, I mean, Andre, I don't know if you were a fan of the new It films at all. I know
I actually kind of was. So yeah, I'll be checking this out, and I look forward to it. Because I don't have that attachment to the original TV.
It's not even the attachment to the original. I just want to say that because it's more so just I don't feel like they understood the character, right? And this was a conversation I had with Tommy Lee Wallace, who did direct the original TV miniseries. And the thing with Pennywise is that they misinterpreted in this version and has nothing to do with Tim Curry's version. I just bring that up as an example because they did get it there. And that is, you can't have Pennywise looking like a crusty, fucked up clown to begin with. That's not how this works. He draws the kids in by looking like a regular clown. See, like, that's another thing they don't really address in the movies either, because if you read the books, like, Georgie's lured in because he sees the clown, he hears the faint noise of a carnival, and the closer he gets to the sewer, he smells popcorn and all the things that are in hot dogs and stuff that are associated with carnivals. So that's the whole thing, is they lure the kid in, and then it's switch to scare the kid because it's that fear, that moment you turn on the fear, the adrenaline kick in that it wants, because that's the seasoning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I know it. I get the argumentation.
Yeah.
I like the portrayal anyway, even though I know it is not in line with the
they needed he could have done a great job with it. They needed to give him an alternate version though, when he's the good version of it. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they didn't give him. That's the problem. Maybe we'll see that in this. If they do that, that'd be cool. But like, to me, it just didn't work because of that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, he's a good actor. I'm not trying to say he's a bad actor or anything like that. It was just a poor choice in how they presented the character.
Yeah, but I'm excited to the prequel to this version, and we'll see how that goes.
But because of that reason, yes, Mecha J. This is true. So with that, we've got one more super chat.
Yeah, we have one more right there.
Packing Proton says, I'm almost afraid to look. Tales of TMNT trailers out. Good idea for a series. Wrong company doing it. I watched a bit of it. It looks like fucking Flash animation. If we're talking about the Mutant Mayhem fucking series. That's the thing. There's so much TMNT stuff. There's a problem of not enough brand. They need a brand manager who knows how to fucking... Oh my God, there's too much shit out there to where I don't even know what the hell half of it is when somebody mentions it now. Because they're also doing an animated version of the He-Man TMNT mashup, I guess, too, Andre, from what I'd read somewhere.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So that's the thing, is like, okay, now you're doing too much shit all over the place with TMNT. You need to streamline this and at best have two different versions, and that's it. You have a kiddie version and you have the adult version. Because that's the other, I guess, a little quick bit of news. The original writer has expressed that they would love to have Judith Hoag return as April O'Neil in the Last Ronin movie they're working on. So to me, that's a good sign that that's what they're shooting for. And that's an attainable thing. So that's the right idea. They're going along with the right idea. Tie it in with the classic Ninja Turtles. That's the right idea. This stuff, though, with all this new stuff, there's just too much of the... They're trying to like throw too much out there and get kids interested in one version or the other, it feels like, and it's just not working for me or other people for that matter, it seems
and
like.
With
but anyway,
that,
with that, as Andre says,
what?
We are fully caught up. So I'd like to say thanks to Script Doctor for joining us today. Thanks to Paul Chato. Everyone check out their channels. Thanks to Mexican Idol Man, who is all over the place. Everyone, be sure to check out check out all of their channels, and thank you all for watching. We'll be back again on Wednesday. Check out the video that we dropped earlier today about how not even pirates wants the Acolyte. How's that for a way of fighting piracy? And with that, unless I'm missing something, it is time.
Let me double check. I was gonna say, let me double check.
Rumble.
Yeah, I don't see anything else. So thank you for guys on the Rumble side for listening. We appreciate it over there as well.
Yeah.
And with that, sorry.
It is time for some koalas in the rain.
Koalas in the rain. Koalas in the rain. No fuss.
Was I supposed to hit the button?
Koalas in the rain.
I got it.